do like that theme song. That theme song's fun. Hey everybody, how's everybody doing tonight? So before we even get started with the goofiness, let me go ahead and introduce everybody. First off, hey everybody, my name is Shaun. I am one half of Pop Cycle Bubbles, where we make all kinds of cool, awesome, geeky things, and we like to talk about geeky stuff. To my screen left, which would be that way, is my awesome counterpart, my lovely bride, my Pookie to the Ookie, and that is Miss Laura. Hey Laura.
What's up?
Yeah. Now, directly below her is our buddy, Miss Anastasia Washington, who has been on many, many times, and we're so glad to have her back. Hey, Anastasia, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I'm eating organic snacks. What could I want more in life?
Right. It's like they're good. What kind of organic snacks?
I don't know.
Yeah, are like, sometimes you just there she goes. She has wine, so she has organic snacks.
Evens out.
And wine.
I have rum.
Yes.
Laura has rum and Coke. But following out the last of our group tonight is going to be somebody who's been on here multiple times. You know her voice quite well. That is my buddy, Miss Christina. Hey, Hurl.
Hi. I found my
Hurl.
bottle opener. I was just it's getting thirsty. Yeah. It's my
Is that a little Sailor Moon? Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Oh my gosh. I was like, that looks like my friend's wedding staff. And it is because it's Sailor Moon. She got married Sailor Moon style.
So while we're letting people get in here, I've had a couple of requests on Twitter and a couple of other folks who have been asking about today, because today is the Georgia Senate runoff. We're not going to get into it because, quite frankly, there's not really anything to get into right now, other than the fact that it is been an exceptionally smooth election day. Anybody hearing anything to the contrary, it's all just smoke and mirrors. There's absolutely not a lot going on. There were a couple of issues this morning. They were all resolved. They were being updated real time. And the Secretary of State of Georgia has learned from the last election back in November to get in front of everything, to basically put it all out on Front Street and to stay up on Front Street. So that way nobody can claim anything as far as impropriety. And it's definitely been working in their favor. But as of right now, the polls closed at 7 p.m. local time here. So about an hour and a half ago. And they're counting the votes. I will do this one time so that way everybody can at least see it, and then we will not have to worry about this again. But we will talk about election night reporting in. This is from the official Georgia Secretary of State website. And currently right now, it looks like the Democratic candidates are winning. But this is only with about a quarter of the reports coming in. So this number could change drastically. But we are waiting to see exactly what the final tally will be. And there's also a Public Service Commission district down here. But right now, the votes are coming in and everything seems to be running smoothly. So there are no problems. But I'm sorry?
I was trying to read it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you, I can.
No, it's fine.
Right now, Ossoff is against Purdue. Ossoff is up by approximately 200, about 100,000 votes. It looks like. No, actually, hold on. Let me see. It's gone down a bit. It looks like maybe 50,000 votes. When I was looking at it earlier, that number was a bit different. So yeah, he's at 1.1 million, and then Warnock is against Loeffler, and he's at 1.115 million. So. And then the Republican counterparts are at 940,000. So there you go. Hopefully that helps anybody who's curious about what's going on. If you want to, you can absolutely go and find this web link. Here, I'll actually put it in the chat for anybody who wants to look at it. And then we won't talk about this again because there's no need. You guys can kind of check this out on your own if you want to. But here you go. I'll just put that in the chat log. Anybody who wants to follow that, feel free to do so. Okay. That's politics stuff out of the way. Everything's running smoothly. It'll be a couple days before we know what the final count is, so don't anybody expect anything to happen for the next couple days. So we're going to talk about real politics now, comic book politics.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Kanye and Kim. I was like, okay.
You know what?
Get into it.
As for many people waiting to get into this, you know what? Yes, Laura and I just read this too. The Kanye Kim thing. Yeah, she's done.
She's done.
So
I think when you publicly tell people that you might have aborted your child that is currently alive, you know, it ruins a relationship a little bit.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, he went publicly and said, was like, when me and Kim got pregnant the first time, we weren't sure we wanted to keep her. And all that. I was like, don't say that.
Yeah. It was gnarly. But I mean, honestly, the thing that Laura and I were talking about an hour ago was, You know, it's clear that she tried to make it work. I mean, honestly, I think any other rational person would have bailed as soon as he decided to announce for president, right? I mean,
she must have really loved him because she has left situations much faster.
Yes. That was significant. Her sticking around as long as she did. But honestly, I don't blame her. It just I know a lot of people say, well, don't forget the person has oh, hold on, we got a funny comment here. Hold on, which is, hey, I just woke up. Well, hey, Cat Gangster, welcome for watching with us, buddy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's like the middle of the night, maybe. No, it's like 5 a.m.
Yeah, I think maybe it's 5 a.m. there. He'll tell us. I'm not quite sure, but they'll let us know. But yeah,
up before the sun. So if the sun's not up, I'm not up.
Right. But no, it was definitely clear. 3 a.m. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's you can go back to sleep, buddy. We're
I
on
wake
VOD.
up at 3 a.m. to pee and then quickly get back in the bed.
She absolutely does. She'll get up and she doesn't even disturb the dogs. Wherever the dogs are, she'll just kind of almost like a snake, just kind of slither out of the bed. Like you can actually still see the indentation where her legs were being like held by the dog, and then she'll just slide back in. It's actually adorable.
It's true.
The warm spot doesn't even have a chance to really cool off. She just
I need to get good at that because I'm not. My animals all look at me and go, "Ugh, again."
That's why I started just like sliding in and out, and then but sometimes when you get in the bed, you have to crawl up on the bed on your knees and then slide backwards.
There are situations for me where I have 1, 2, 3, most of the time 3 cats, but there have been nights where I had 5 cats in the bed.
Oof.
And that's like on really cold nights, so that we let them in the house. But
and soon a giant dog.
Oh,
right.
No, he's not going upstairs.
Yeah, sure.
No, but anyway, so I have to make several dexterity checks on like getting out of the bed. I don't care about disturbing them because they will be disturbed because like 2 of them are in between my legs. So it's like I have to.
That's where Corday sleeps, and I
have to make several. I have to make several checks. Thank God I have bonuses attached to my character sheet, but like, yeah, it's quite it's a workout. That's what it is. I get my nightly workout just trying to get out of the bed.
that's your calisthenics. That's all.
Between my knees.
Yeah.
So I sleep on my stomach. Corday sleeps right between my knees. And when I have to get up out of the bed, I slide around her. She stays in the exact same spot, does not move. When I get back in the bed, I slide back right into the same spot. She does not move.
Yeah, I have to slide right back into position once I get back in.
So thanks for joining us for Pet Bed Talk.
This is real talk. When you sleep,
the struggle is real. I mean, it is.
Sleep with animals in the bed. You don't want to wake, because seriously, if I wake Corday up,
she does. Oh my God, does the dog?
She just won't move. She's reached the point. She's about to turn 15 at the end of the month. She has reached the point of 0 fucks. And if I want her to move and she does not want to move, she just won't move. So one way or the other, I have to figure out how to get around her because she's not going to move.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, Corday, she's gotten to that age now where she's like, I have earned this spot. You move around me. And for a dog that only weighs 11 pounds, she's heavy in the middle of the night.
She turns into a cinder block when
she does. I think she becomes like a gravity well, and like just all the weight of the world is sitting on her. If we disturb her too much, I think the earth would go off its axis. So we got to be careful with that.
Then don't wake the Kraken.
Yeah,
we do not awaken the Kraken. Yes.
How the end of the world happens.
Right now, she also has flock of seagulls hair because we've let her get really scruffy, so her hair's kind of over her eyes a bit. It's pretty damn adorable, actually.
So emo. I love it.
Cat Gangster wants us to know that they have a 90-centimeter wide bed that they share with 3 labs.
Nice. So that means Cat Gangster has about this much bed, and the dogs have the rest of it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty standard. I mean, if Corday takes up 1/4 of our bed, then yeah, there's no way Cat Gangster has anything more than like just a sliver and the rest of it's just being taken. But okay, so we've given everybody a chance to log in and come visit and whatnot. So first off, thanks for everybody for showing up. Today we're going to be talking about Wonder Woman 84. I was not planning on talking about this, but I tend to have a knee-jerk reaction when I really like something and I see the entire world hates it. I kind of need to talk about it a bit. And Laura's like, "Can we talk about it?" And I was like, "Yes."
It's the same time, like this is exactly the same scenario when Man of Steel came out.
A little bit.
I was like an apologizer at the time because it was still by the time we recorded that one, I was still processing the movie.
Yeah.
And then when we were talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, I don't like this movie.
One thing I want to say is before we get started with this conversation is first, one thing that I like to make clear is that just because I like a movie doesn't mean I can't see the flaws. And Laura and I will be more than happy to beat up on the flaws of this movie. And there are flaws in Wonder Woman 84. This is by no means like a perfect movie.
What? There's flaws?
Right. But we enjoyed the movie and we were just amazed at how many people were just like destroying on it. I was like, man. And so I'm going to start with an opening statement and then I'll kind of go around for everybody else and we'll see what happens. Of course, everybody feel free to jump in as you like. And we'll see how the conversation goes. But I personally feel part of what's happening right now with Wonder Woman 84 and why ultimately won't matter in the grand scheme of this franchise is it feels to me like an Iron Man 2 effect. If you guys remember when Iron Man came out, that was like the end all be all. Like that people were like, oh my God, I can't believe they made this Iron Man movie. And the hype for Iron Man 2 was so great. It was almost impossible to ever meet that hype. And sure enough, Iron Man 2 did not get there. In fact, a lot of people said this may kill the Iron Man franchise, like dead and, just dead out. And ultimately it didn't. And Tony Stark went to become one of the most beloved characters in the MCU and things are great. I'm kind of feeling the same way about this. I kind of feel like we waited too long for this movie. There are a lot of flaws that felt amplified because we were expecting the greatness of the lightning in the bottle. That was the first movie. And I think that there's just there were a lot of expectations. A lot of people felt that the first Wonder Woman was a fantastic, great movie. And I feel like things just got amplified out of control. And when you have legitimate beefs and then people were wanting something better, they get really upset. But I'm not the only person that has an opinion on this. And Anastasia looks like she's about to pop out of her skull. So let's ask Anastasia what her initial impressions of Wonder Woman 84 are, or what your opening statement, I guess, would be.
I am one of the few people that did not go crazy for Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman. But I also didn't have high expectations. I'm going to say that I am a hardcore Marvel fan. I go into DC knowing it's DC, and I'm sure I'm going to get hate. I don't have that much expectation, so therefore I don't get that disappointed. I'm also not super invested in it as much as I am with my Marvel characters.
That's fair.
And so I don't cry and get upset about it. I just go, hey, look what they did.
Yeah,
that was enjoyable. And then I start breaking down some of the stuff that just made me go, that was something you didn't need to do, you know? And I felt like I feel the same way with Wonder Woman 84. I watched it with my family. There was some kick-ass women in it. I saw some people that I actually know being some badass Amazons, and I was rooting for all this kick-ass action, and I was fine with it. I do see the problems.
And there are problems. I mean, especially in a modern context. Big problems.
But I do see the same. I see one of the same problems as the first one, is that it's really focused on a love story, and that's okay. It's just not where I want to be with it.
Fair enough. Okay, Christina, how about you?
I'm in between the Shaun boat and the Anastasia boat, but I'm more leaning towards the Anastasia boat. But as you also know, Shaun, I also had problems with it a little bit, but it's mostly because it revisits the same formula that all superhero sequels visit. too often. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we go go into the conversation. But it does the thing that I hate the most about all superhero movies, and Marvel has done it too. And I mean, but also at the same time, there are some things that I love about it. God damn that I want to be in Themyscira a lot longer than we got to be in there.
Yeah.
Like, because that little girl, we need something a little bit more with that little girl because like young Diana, because Jesus Christ. See, I read somewhere that she did her own stunts.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
And that kid's badass already. So I just want a little bit more Themyscira. That's just one of my things. And I don't know. I mean, it has already overcome its sequelitis because it's going to get a third, but it needs to fix a few issues for it to, I don't know, just win back the audience that it lost. Or I mean, I guess goodwill that it lost from some people, not everyone, but some.
Right.
I will say yes. Marvel has its problems. It just devastates me more when it's Marvel than it does with DC.
It doesn't hurt your feelings as much when it's
right. But I will say, if you want to see more behind the scenes of the training that they had to do for those scenes, the Amazon scenes, my friend is one of them, and it's Gwendolyn on Instagram, and she shows some of the training they had to do those scenes. Kick ass, just makes you want to work out a little bit.
I love their training videos, and I have seen a little bit of Gwen's videos, and it's just like, I want to be there.
It's so epic.
And for full disclosure, Laura and I, we kind of adopt the attitude of we like all comic movies. We don't really lean Marvel or DC. We kind of go where we want the story to be. So if there's a good story in Marvel, great, let's go enjoy that story. But we do have a preferential leaning towards DC just because that's what I grew up on, and because Laura really got into comic books early when I was getting back into my DC catch-up phase. She's pretty big into DC as well. So we lean more DC, but again, I just go where the movies are. I never look at it as a competition. I look at it as good comic movies engender more fun, good comic book movies. Bad comic book movies.
I don't think it's a competition for me either. I just I think like
I wasn't trying to imply it was.
I'm just saying like when I grew up, my first comic books, my like gateway drugs were DC. But I think the one I truly fell in love with is when I started seeing anti-heroes in Marvel, and that's my jam. I just love them. I just love my anti-heroes.
Okay, so Laura, what were your opening thoughts for this?
I don't want to give it all away in the first 4 minutes. But
we're going to get into it. So you actually get the perfect header to just go. So
I really liked the movie. I think that I can understand why some people don't, but also I think some people are being really hard on it unnecessarily for no reason. There was some things that were not good about it, but some of those things that people find as a fault were actually kind of the point.
Yes.
And how that point just sails over them as being that it was there for a reason, just sails over their head and they don't see it that way. But ultimately, I really liked the movie because it was really hopeful in that you can, as everyone does, make a mistake and acknowledge it and be better. And I mean, ultimately, that's kind of the point, is just be better. And I thought that was a message we kind of needed this year, because I mean, of all the years where somebody's like, hey, maybe you made a mistake,
right?
Acknowledge it and be better. If everyone kind of took a step back and thought about that, 2021 could be a lot better.
Right. And in order for us to get into this, we're definitely going to have to get into spoiler territory. So I'm just going to put it up right now. Spoilers are incoming, people. Okay. So if you don't want to be spoiled, okay, this is your chance to just turn off this feed, because we're not going to hold back. I'm not going to let anybody be censored as far as like just spoiling stuff. This is your warning. Okay. So once this banner drops, we're going to get into it.
What kind of spoiler could ruin somebody's life at this point? Like, it would only be like Wonder Woman died, and then she's probably, and even then, they'd find a way to bring her back. There's no.
Right.
I mean, it's comic books. No one actually dies.
Right. It is
Yeah.
comic book.
Yeah.
But
the biggest issue
ahead.
that I maybe would want to discuss as an issue is that they tried to do too much in 2 hours. They had these two villains, so to speak, that haunted Diana for decades. And they tried to rush them from their inception all the way through their like end point in 2 hours.
Yes, I mean, and that's what I was getting at when I started talking. Like, you have these two major Wonder Woman villains. Like, each of them have their own baggage with Wonder Woman in the comics, especially Cheetah. And I mean,
well, I have comments about Cheetah, but please continue. Yes.
Oh, I mean, she hot, but I have some problems with how they tell the story.
Go ahead. I'll finish.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, you wait, and I'll finish talking.
No, well, I'm going to say this: of all the Cheetah intro stories, of all the Cheetah Inception stories, this is the most palatable for audiences.
Oh, definitely. Like,
yeah,
you can go on YouTube. I think IGN does a pretty good breakdown of of the character's history. And this one is the more palatable, but I just wish their relationship was a bit more organically presented than it was. I mean, and that's kind of like some of the things that when you introduce major characters all at once in one movie where you know your limit is 2 hours or something like that,
right?
You know things are going to fall through the cracks. I mean, if we just started with someone like Cersei, I mean, she's also a major villain, but no one really knows that much about her. I mean, at least me being like the cursory person, like cursory comic book reader from Days of Yore. But like, if we just like kept with the gods part a little bit longer and just slightly introduced Cheetah or someone like that, then, you know, it would have felt a little less rushed. Maybe theoretically.
Yeah, I think one of the big issues, I'm sorry, I just wanted to tee off on that for a second, which was, I think one of the big issues that I'm noticing with any movie that tries to handle multiple villains is if you take them from friend to foe, if they are not the focus of that film, it's very difficult to give them the proper time needed. We've seen this over and over again. A good example of just rushing too far to the plate would be like Star Trek Into Darkness, where they try to make Khan look like he's going to be a friend of Kirk, but then he betrays him halfway through the movie, and we already knew that he was going to become a bad guy. That story would have been far more interesting if like Khan would have been his friend all the way to the end, and then like the last note drop is there's something sinister, and then do a whole other movie of Khan going evil.
I mean, and there's another, I mean, with that movie specifically, the trailer is already spoiled that he was Khan. So the reveal of
sexy,
that one,
sexy fight scene.
But like, I mean, the trailers was that movie's undoing. Get out of here! So Benedict Cumberbatch snatched me.
Okay, that's enough. Wow, she went straight for the holy moly.
Yeah. It was right there on the table. I had to take it. Anyway. But oh God, what was I saying before
we were talking about rushing the story.
Oh yeah. So I mean, oh yeah, I was finishing my thought with Into Darkness. The trailer for that one just kind of petered out the big reveal, but
trailers tend to do nowadays. Like, why do we need stop spoiling it in the trailer? Like,
I know, but like, but with the relationship between Cheetah and Wonder Woman, I honestly thought that her evolution in their relationship would go a lot smoother than it did. But as is my common complaint whenever they try to do major characters like this, it ends up being bloated with a whole lot of nothing. And like moving on to Max Lord has his own significance. Like maybe not early in her comics, but very like a decade ago, it was like
2004 or 2005.
Oh God! But like
when he brainwashed Superman. I mean,
hold on, I'll tell you. Hold on, I'll get the comic book. Hold on.
Yeah, like Max Lord had his moment in a Wonder Woman comic book where she actually kills him. Like I'm leading into like a whole nother
like a twig, but he had spent a decade brainwashing Superman basically to be his little bitch.
Yes.
And she knew the only way to take him out was to kill him. And then he made it look like she murdered him in cold blood, and she went on trial for murder.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a really dynamic cinematic story. We could have just said that whole thing. I think they tried to do so much, and they settled at nothing. They settled on nothing. It's like, I was like, we're gonna give you this and this and this, and then we're gonna kill him off. We're gonna give you this and this, and then kill him off. I'm like,
2 hours. They could have turned this into setting up a villain. If they had done anything else than make him absorb this stone of power, he could have just fed off of it and gained some power in this movie and kept gaining power. And then this could turn into another big DC event where he gets Superman and then she has to team up with Batman. And this is how they could make an awesome Justice League movie.
I mean, and also this would totally explain like properly why her Snyder version turned her back on humanity. Is if everyone went against her. But also, I don't know. I mean, I had a thought and I'm already losing it.
It's losing.
Yeah, I'm losing it. But like, we could have just had. We could have just had like that type of Max Lord story, and make what Antiope from like the prologue of the movie makes sense. Like taking shortcuts and having consequences.
Mm-hmm.
It would make a whole lot sense than making wishes and then having to resend them. But
that is a shortcut.
It's a shortcut.
A shortcut.
But I had a problem with that whole entire plot. Because not only was that creepy, him inhabiting some other dude's body and her loving on it, but I mean, it's just.
Also, at the end, when he's out of the body and they meet and he's like, hey, and then she's like, hey, I've already been there. And he goes, I feel like you've touched this before. Let's do it. Like, it's the weirdest pickup ever.
So, do you remember, I don't know if you'll watch this show, but What We Do in the Shadows?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so remember
Gregor.
His soul keeps getting reincarnated and they're just like attracted to each other, but she was mad that she couldn't fight Gregor, so she did the spell to bring all the Gregors back into one body.
Wait, was it Gregor, or am I thinking of one of the main characters and just suppositioning?
No, I think that was his name. It was Gregor.
Was his name.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But
But he's still the reincarnated version of that person.
But isn't that kind of what this is? His soul.
No.
His soul was in.
We're not told one way or the other, quite frankly. We don't have enough information.
The essence that was him is now occupying random DC guy.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he was reincarnated at birth in What We Do in the Shadows, right? This is his body. This is his reincarnation. This is reincarnated into a live body, which in fact is not a reincarnation. It is it's a possession. There we go. You're possessing a human body and wiping out his existence.
Reincarnation, then all those past lives are still in there. So he's in there somewhere. The magic just brought him out.
No. No, like his soul is sitting back seat while someone else is riding. That's how I saw
okay,
it.
hold on.
It's like invasion
or
of the
driving.
body snatchers. Somebody else is driving his
But
body.
I think
Thank you. Somebody said body snatchers.
It's less creepy because the hot woman is blowing on
this
his.
guy's married and has a family with
stick.
kids. What's about to happen? The fact that he was single was probably the best thing that happened in this situation.
Yes.
Imagine if he had a wife and suddenly he comes home with Diana Prince.
She'd be dead. If that was my husband, they'd all be dead. I don't care about your superpowers or your lasso of truth. I'm gonna take you down.
I'm gonna try and cut her, and she won't cut.
I'll find a way.
Okay.
I will find a way.
Let me step in for a second. There definitely is something that one thing that we cannot say for sure, one way or the other, is Laura and I kind of were like, well, maybe like he's reincarnated. That was what we were supposing before we went into the movie. That was what we were thinking was going to happen, is that somehow mystically his soul was going to remember his past life. There's nothing to say that did not happen. There's nothing to say that it did happen. That's the thing. No, we don't know how the wish works. He could have woke up in India for all.
No, we know he's not. We know he's not reincarnated into that body because he had a life after he was removed,
right?
And a personality and a soul and whatever. So that's not reincarnation. That is possession.
No, it's just making the former lifetime come to the forefront. You're taking it a little too literally here. I'm saying, and again, I'm not trying to. I do not want to get into a spiritual debate over. My point is that his memories, it could have still been Steve, just bringing Steve to, of course, override the current personality.
But I feel the same way Shaun does. The soul has inhabited numerous bodies, has all those memories, and the wish just brought that soul's memories to the forefront. That's what I think happened. But
I think that should have been explained in the movie.
That's what I was going for, is that they needed to explain how this wish worked. But I think ultimately something that we need to also acknowledge here is that, they did take a really weird, everything else just kind of manifested. There is no reason why Steve couldn't have just poop and appeared. Like, they could have made it real easy for Diana. He could just appeared.
I really like the sound effect.
Right. The boop, like they kind of just, and we could have skipped this entire conversation altogether. Pardon me.
I do think that would have probably been a better route. He just manifested out of clay. What if he manifested out of clay?
Right. And the reason why I think
it could have been a mannequin sequel.
Oh, wouldn't that have been hilarious? That would have been an 80s reference. That would have been so freaking funny. Like,
what if
he wakes up in a store window, like, what the shit? Like,
okay, so there is an archaeological department. I bet they have like bones and stuff and cavemen's. So like one of their dummies from the caveman exhibit suddenly becomes him. Steve. And he's
Steve getting out of Steve getting out of a primate exhibit, right? With like a big old Fred Flintstone.
See, I think we just all need to be in some kind of think tank, or like be a dramaturg, the equivalent of a dramaturg,
right?
In Hollywood. Just hire us, Hollywood. Please.
Seriously, and
I will fix your problems.
This was a problem, and I know Patty Jenkins has gone on the record of saying that this was just meant to kind of be like a weird body swap kind of thing that happened a lot in the 80s, and she's like, yeah, it's problematic. But one thing she did say is, and this is something that I actually like that she's come out and officially said, which is that when you renounce your wish, it never happened. You have memories of it, but it actually never happened. So it kind of undoes all of that. So he never actually.
I remember being floated around with.
So whatever happened, like he is technically he did have sex with her, and then he didn't have sex with her because the wish immediately nullifies it. And I'm like, okay,
it's like the Schrodinger's dick.
It is. She was like,
this is like some kind of sexual assault loophole, but
it is. No, and it definitely is. And I think that when you look at it from the point of view of it trying to be mimicking 80s tropes. Okay, fine. It mimicked an 80s trope. It wasn't a good 80s trope. I would have preferred the mannequin trope. I love the idea. of the mannequin trope, or the I come alive because of cavemen bones in the museum. Those are all amazing. I think those are fantastic. Or what would the one that I think would have been funny but way too dark for this movie is Steve immediately wakes up in the last place he was alive, which is in the middle of the air, dropping in the middle of France, and he just dies immediately on contact with the ground.
Damn, bro.
That's a mannequin.
Right, but I think the mannequin would have been.
I had him crawling out of the caveman exhibit a little furry and in a loincloth better.
I like the caveman thing. The caveman.
The caveman might be edging a little too close to the 90s, though, because of
Encino Man.
That's
true. So we have to go full Kim Cattrall then, and he has to he could be a mannequin in an exhibit in the museum.
Yeah, all right.
So he could just wake up in I don't know, like George Washington, like on what was the boat when he's crossing the
I don't know,
Delaware.
Hollywood is always a little too on the nose, so they would have put him in the World War I exhibit.
That would have been in a completely different building than hers, though, because she's in like the ancient artifacts place, and that would have been in the museum.
He would have woke up as a pharaoh. He would have been a pharaoh mannequin, right? Which reincarnation? See, little It
would be really funny if he woke up in the what was it, Air and Space, and he was one of the mannequins.
He was one of the astronauts in the. That would have been funny.
No, he wakes up wearing a World War I pilot costume, thinks he's back where he started, like, what the fuck, realizes he's in 1984, and then...
Yeah, he would have been in
Diana, because there's something happening in one of the exhibits.
Right.
Or, since it's magic, he could just show up.
We already covered that one. That's boring. We're going with the mannequin one. The mannequin is way more fun.
Because then nobody has to be upset that that she's having sex with an inanimate object, that it's somebody else's body. It's just so much like more politically correct, and nobody has to be angry.
Yeah.
And honestly, or abused. Or sexually assaulted.
I mean, come on. Like, I don't think anybody's ever said, well, Andrew McCarthy, was boinking that mannequin that looked like Kim Cattrall. I don't think anybody walked away from that movie kind of going like, yeah, Andrew McCarthy's just a weirdo.
I honestly haven't seen the whole movie.
I mean, if you think about it, though, like, if you just took a second and thought,
I mean, there is a Bob's Burgers episode about it, so we all know how we feel about it.
So he wakes up frozen in ice in Antarctica, or am I thinking of another Steve?
Yes, you are. But also, you're thinking of Encino Man as well.
The point is, Patty Jenkins, you have a lot of really interesting ideas. Making him just automatically appear in somebody else's body, not a good one.
No, the point is, next time you write Wonder Woman movie, call us.
Yes. We'll help springboard.
Not Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and we'll give you a good rate too. Like we'll rock that out.
I guarantee you, I'm more affordable than whoever they paid.
I'm gonna ask for the big bucks. Okay.
Well, that's true. Anastasia lives in LA, so she's got to have that LA money. So we live in Charleston. We could take Charleston money and be just fine. So
there's Charleston money would like
it's a curve.
LA money in Charleston is a whole mansion.
Seriously.
Actually, like
and
a
haunted mansion too, right?
No, that's still Indiana.
Yeah, we have to go to Indiana for that one. Yes,
we would have to go to Indiana for that one, but like I don't know. Actually, Charleston is turning into LA.
I could buy that house in Wyoming, and then we can all move into it because it was like 20,000 square feet.
Oh yeah,
it was like 3.5 million. We write a couple of movies. Become amazing. And then we buy our 20,000 square foot mansion in the Wyoming mountains and never have to come down off the mountain. We just write our stories.
Yeah, okay.
That sounds amazing to me.
My cats would have to have their own wing, though.
It's 20,000 square feet. You can have your own fucking house.
So, back to Wonder Woman. I didn't want to interrupt them, so I'm like, let them finish their thought. But like,
Laura, that's one.
No, that was two. She's had both of her F-bombs.
Wait, I have a counter? I don't have a counter.
Oh, yeah, you're at your counter. You're maxed out.
I pay.
I have a sweater.
I pay for this shit. So, hey, I can do what I want.
Actually, we just watched the history of curse words. We did watch the first one. That was hilarious.
I watched the first one.
That was pretty good. And you know what? It had just the right amount of Nicolas Cage, and then it went to people who actually knew what they were talking about. It was, if you haven't heard about this yet, literally Nicolas Cage is like a host, kind of like Unsolved Mysteries, where they're talking about, where did this particular curse word come from? And so he'll start it, and then they toss to people who are like entomologists or comedians, and they talk about why it's their favorite curse word and stuff. It's on Netflix.
The woman in the romper. She was wearing the big romper. She looks like the quintessential like mom, soccer mom, but she's really like
an expert in curse words.
Expert on cursing.
Nice. Amazing.
I already put her book in my Goodreads list. I was like, yes. That's me putting it in a Goodreads. I
was like, no way.
So we actually have a question on the board here, which is, do you really think everybody would give up their wish, especially the more selfish wishes like Cheetah still transformed since that was a wish?
Once he gave up his wish, they gave up their wish because he didn't have the power to give them the wish.
Right. When Max rescinded his powers, when he renounced his wish, it retroactively took everything back.
Oh, yeah,
so
I imagine like a good percentage did not take back their wish.
Of course not. Yeah, no. There was a whole group of people who were like, you gave me that. No.
So, but one thing that I do want to bring up, and this is actually, there are things that Patty Jenkins was doing in this movie that I thought was really clever, but because let me put this on Front Street. Patty Jenkins, I think, came up with a really interesting story, and I like what she did inside of it conceptually, and what she was trying to do, show that not all superhero movies have to end with a big giant fight, and that's ultimately going to be the way how you defeat evil, stuff like that. I love all of that. But her ability to convey these ideas sometimes falls short. And I think that we saw a lot of that happen in this movie. And I think one really important part of this is one of the things that she was trying to convey is I don't want to call anybody out in court, but I know Christina's a little too young for it. Anastasia, you're between Christina's age and my age, I believe, correct?
I think so. I have no idea.
I'm 42.
I'm 37.
Okay. Well, I don't like to call people out on their age, so I don't want to like. So, I don't want to be secret. Well, no, I mean, some people don't like to talk about their age, so I don't like to, say. So you may remember this, but during the 80s, though, we were the last generation of kids that remember having to prep for the nuclear bomb by getting under our desks.
We did not do that.
Right. We had to do these kind of things. The bomb was very much a part of our childhood. Not necessarily to the degree that our parents were, where they were living.
Yeah. They were getting you can find gas masks made out of like Mickey Mouse's face because that's how much it's insane.
Messed up. Yeah. I was talking to my mom about this because my mom loved it because she felt immediately what they were doing, but she was having a hard time trying to put it into words. And I was like, well, you lived through like the worst part of the nuclear scare. We got the end of it. And one of the things that people don't remember is that in the very early 80s, there was basically there was a movie called The Day After that came out on TV. And it was about what happens after nuclear Armageddon. And it was at that point, the most realistic depiction of what would happen in the aftermath of full onslaught global nuclear war. And it was it scared people so much. It scared people so badly that the president at the time, Ronald Reagan, began aggressive denuclearization and was able to push across the globe to reduce the count of nukes that we had on count. Because we already have today enough nukes to like nuke us over, I think it's like 10 times. It used to be like 60 times. We had so many nukes, it was insane. And this was a movie. This was one moment for 2 hours on one night where the whole world went, oh my God, we're this close to it at any given moment. And it caused people to blink and say, I don't want this. And people thought nukes were going to be the savior of the world. This was going to be the thing that was going to protect us for all time. And people said, I renounce my wish for having nukes. I don't want them anymore. So when people say, would anybody give that up if they were shown the terror of what could happen if their wishes or their deepest, darkest wants were put completely on Front Street, and you see what that devastation caused, I point to this movie and this moment that really happened in the early 80s and say, yeah, people very much turned overnight and said, I don't want this anymore.
Oh, and I think majority of people would, but there's no way that 100% of people would be
not at all.
Yeah.
But
there's just people that don't care.
Right. And there are enough of them that did. And then, of course, Pedro Pascal seeing his son basically gonna just get, he's in a field and a nuke is just going to drop on this kid. He's like, I have to stop this. I have to
one guy who wished for cows. I love that, though. He just wanted a farm. So he got random cows.
Yeah, he did. He wanted a farm, and then it shows up at the Watergate Hotel, right? He's like, I've got cows at the Watergate. What the hell is this?
He's like, I wanted a farm.
Right.
One cow does not make a farm.
I think there were some sheep and a pig in the background or something. It was weird. And there was like one fence, like just like randomly at like the
farm ever. It's like a
petting
zoo.
It was very sad.
It's really sweet. This guy, he could have wished for anything. And he's just like, I want to farm with animals.
Right. Just I wished for a farm. You wished for a farm. Like you could just hear the Green Acres theme song in the background, right?
That guy can just come to my house. So we're practically a farm. Now.
Seriously. Yeah. If you don't know, Christina has picked up some goats.
Goats and chickens.
And chickens now. You have goats and chickens.
Yep.
So she has goats, chickens, 15 dogs, 47 cats.
And a partridge.
And a partridge and a pear tree.
Yeah. And a number of elderly people to play with all the animals. So
amazing.
So there you go. That's Christina's house.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. But I think that was one of the things that she was trying to convey was, in the onslaught of all of this in the 80s, we all blinked. And I think she was trying to show us that we can blink. We could see the worst in ourselves and say, I don't want this. And I think that was where she was trying to go with that particular plot line. But the other part of it that I get a lot of people, getting really upset about was this idea that there was no way that Cheetah could have gotten extra wishes. And I'm like, well, she didn't get extra wishes. And this was something that, again, I feel was not conveyed very well in the movie, which was that Pedro Pascal, by becoming Ted Cord, not Ted Cord.
Max Lord.
Ted Cord is who Max Lord kills. Maxwell Lord. Sorry, I'm literally looking at my Crisis on Infinite Earths, and there's Ted Cord all dead. Here, I'll put that over here so I don't look at it. Oh, by the way, Ted Cord all dead. 2005 was when that came out. By the way, that whole plot line, Christina. So yeah, it was 2005. So Maxwell Lord, when he became the Wish Stone, the monkey's paw, whatever you want to call it, when he actually became it, he gave the properties that were involved, which is in order to grant something, he can take something from them. So the whole time, whenever somebody asks for something, he gets to take something in return. And when he said, I'm feeling generous, he says, what would you want? And she told him what she wanted. And he would say, instead of giving that to me, give that to her. So when he was doing that whole thing at the end where he was getting, 1.2 billion wishes all at the same time, he was like, let her have her apex predator. So she never got another wish. He was just being generous he was giving her some runoff. He was trickle down economicsing her on a wish scale. And that's the thing I think a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because he wanted Wonder Woman out of the way, and giving her that power would help with that.
Right. And I think one of the things that I think a lot of people probably picked up on and probably don't know is that Maxwell Lord was originally written as a parody of Donald Trump back in the 80s when he was like...
He literally played it. I swear to God, he watched CNN and was like, this is how I'm going to play this character.
Right. He's playing Donald Trump a little bit more like he is now.
But we feel so much more sorry for him.
I know, because in the 80s, though, you have to remember that in the 80s,
because I don't feel sorry for Trump.
No, not at all. Because when Maxwell Lord was created, he was made to be a parody of a billionaire or millionaire who was doing a lot of land deals. Doing a lot of land deals, doing a lot of kind of shaky investments and whatnot, and he kept screwing it up. So Maxwell Lord, with his ability to push people, because his original power was that he could influence what you thought. So if you were inclined to say no, but you thought you might say yes to something, he could push you to say yes. If he tried really hard, he could stop you from moving your hand for a second, but he wasn't able to control people. It took him a long time to develop that power. Basically, they said that for the 20 years that he knew Superman, he every day pushed him just a little bit more. So that way he could eventually control Superman body and soul, and he could make Superman see Doomsday. And he could say, Doomsday's Laura. And then Superman would just come over and punch Doomsday in the face, and Laura would be decapitated. So Superman became his secret weapon. But in the 80s, when he was first made, he was a failing businessman who always had these weird Ponzi schemes, who thought that he could turn the Justice League into more or less a brand. I'm going to make the Justice League into a brand. I'm going to be your brand manager. So he tried to turn the Justice League. Right. He was trying to make them into Trump steaks, basically, right? So you have to remember, that's where
Trump University.
And Trump University. So that's where the idea of Maxwell Lord started. And so here comes Pedro Pascal, and he's like, oh, he's based on Donald Trump. Well, let me look at Donald Trump now. And it was so on the nose, it kind of cracked me up to no end. I thought it was one of the more brilliant things because my mom, and I like to reference my mom on this because I had a whole conversation with her because she loved the movie, but she has a really big problem with Wonder Woman 84 because she loves The Mandalorian, and she doesn't like the fact that now Maxwell Lord is fighting for Daddy Mando space, and she's like, I don't like that they messed up my Mandalorian.
Oh, I don't know if she wants to see Sicario then.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do
I
that.
don't know that it messed it up. I think by making
Oh, it didn't. That was just her being silly. Yeah.
But I think Pedro made him seem so much more redeemable, and like you were like, I know you suck, but there's something redeemable about you. It's kind of like the Purple Man in Jessica Jones when it's David Tennant. You're like, but I can fix him somehow. He's okay.
He didn't want to look like a loser in front of his son.
Right. He didn't want to look like, and that scene where his son gives him the wish. That was one of the best scenes where he was like, what would you wish for? You could want anything. He goes, I wish that you would be more successful or you would have more power or something like that.
I wish for your greatness.
I wish for your greatness. Oh. And there are so many parallels to other parts of it. And again, that'll go into the politics side of it. And I don't want to go there, but there was a great way of handling.
There's no way Trump was ever that affectionate with his children.
No, never.
Never.
Pin over here. But it struck me as being so phenomenally interesting that they took that kind of choice with Maxwell Lord. And I think that Christina and Laura and Anastasia are just right, which is we put too much time into just trying to accelerate all the way to the end. And I think it would have been interesting for Maxwell Lord to have picked up this power and to show back up, a couple movies from now, possibly in the present, an older version of Maxwell Lord. But because he has the power of the wishing stone, he still is fairly young or something. Now he's got a full
because that was a wish.
Well, no, but I'm saying like that would have been a much more interesting version of the character instead of having him go from 0 to 100 in 2 hours.
Yeah, I really don't know why they wanted to rush out these two villains that basically
huge villains, huge important villains.
These multi-movie villains that could bring it back into an all-character movie, like another Justice League movie.
The only thing I could think about the reason why they did that is I feel like everyone kind of blames Patty Jenkins for any flaws, but we know as a filmmaker and stuff like that, she only has so much say, and they do, the studios do put a lot of pressure on you to be like, okay, we need named villains that are like highly whatever, and then we need something new for the next one. And there's a system, there's a process that there's a machine.
I feel like they were looking at Spider-Man. Look what Spider-Man does their villains, where Spider-Man has a villain at the beginning and it's defeated at the end. Green Goblin has haunted Spider-Man for many, many decades.
Yeah.
He was made and defeated all within 2 hours.
Right.
So it's like they looked at this and they said, we want to do it like that. But
they put 2 instead of 1.
And maybe if they hadn't brought in the cheetah element and it had just been Max Lord, then maybe.
But I mean, Max Lord is still, Cheetah's gone, I feel like, but
they ruined the Cheetah line now because Cheetah's gone.
Yeah, well, okay, first off, let's be fair.
Not gone.
Yeah, let's be fair. Barbara Minerva will be back. We'll have a new version of Cheetah at some point because, and this is so something, if you don't know about this, Cheetah's origin stories are just insane.
They're awful.
They're awful. I was telling Laura, I said, I'm actually pretty happy with this version of Cheetah for the fact that she doesn't have a repugnant origin story. Her original origin story, and this is not even an exaggeration, she was a debutante. Basically, her, what is that when you're being outed to upper crust? Is it the debut ball? Yeah, she was having her debut in society, right? And Wonder Woman basically had a big fight in the middle of her debut party, and she was so upset she swore her life to destroying Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that was the first one.
That was the very first one. Talk about the whitest of white privilege, right? You messed up my debut ball, so I'm going to ruin you.
How dare you? She's basically Scarlett O'Hara.
Basically. So then her granddaughter is caught by this evil organization called Cobra. Has nothing to do with G.I. Joe. But yes, it is Cobra with a K. And they brainwash her. They basically mind rape her and turn her into a villain because the grandmother was too old. So that's the second version Okay.
There was another version where she just ended up being a total sacrifice.
So the third version is she was a sacrifice, and she was supposed to be
a virgin.
She wasn't a virgin, and because she wasn't a virgin, instead of the sacrifice, she was going to become the embodiment of the goddess that they were going to put inside of her, but she had to die to do it. But she wasn't a virgin, so basically they slut shamed her, and she became cursed with this cannibalistic cheetah version of herself. And
Jennifer's body,
right? And so then the final version is the worst version of the origin stories. The final version, which this is only like 3 or 4 years old, same story. Basically, she was obsessed with anthropology, had discovered this ritual, and basically you become the bride of this cheetah king. But again, you have to be a virgin. And because when they had to consummate the ritual, she was going to be given all this power, he found out that she wasn't. He slut shamed her and turned her into a cannibalistic cheetah woman for the rest of her life. And so I'm like, are you
cheetah woman is just slut shaming? It just sounds like the whole origin of cheetah is to slut shame somebody and then put them in a cat suit that's very tight and revealing.
Well, just the first two. The second two, it was actually their body. But yes, basically. Just the first.
I just wanted to make sure I got it. So, okay.
Right. Terrible origins. Terrible.
So over here on my Twitch, I have Mr. Fart Brains. He went on a rant while you guys were talking about cheetah.
Okay.
So everything Chris Pine was shocked by in the future was already invented when he died. True. Everything.
Yeah, Pop-Tarts were not that new.
No, I mean, except with the exception of maybe Pop-Tarts. I don't know. But I mean, no, there were Pop-Tarts. Just not our kind of Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, they were just different. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did not have frosting on them, so they were not Pop-Tarts.
Untrue. There was frosting.
Pop-Tarts are only good without the frosting.
No,
that is for toaster strudel. Okay. You're not trying to get into toaster strudel area.
Okay. Toaster strudels are completely different than Pop-Tarts.
I don't know. Anastasia, we're losing you. We're hearing some bullshit about you not liking frosting on your Pop-Tarts. What? I'm sorry. We lost Anastasia.
I'll be right back.
but also, okay. So he goes on to say, like, how did he not know what fireworks were? They're thousands of years old. The entire first act of the movie was about her mom wouldn't let her train until she was older. This movie opened up with her training when she was little. What? Stop it. How about when she lassoed an airplane, but then couldn't lasso the guy standing next to her?
Okay. Let me handle these in order. Pop-Tarts. There are things we don't talk about in this country. Okay, Pop-Tarts is one of the Pop-Tarts and religion. Okay, we just put those to the side. The fireworks, I don't think that's what he was amazed by. I think he was amazed by being able to fly through the fireworks. I think that is the fundamental difference. Because I'm sorry, if I get to be in an invisible plane and fly through fireworks, that's going to be gorgeous. That was one of my favorite shots of the movie. Is them flying. I don't
think you should fly through them. I mean, don't fly through them. Maybe not. Yeah.
I had more of a problem with the fact that the plane was already fueled up. Like, really? They just keep fueled up planes in their museum? Okay, fair enough.
Right.
But we don't know. I mean, who knows? So
just in case. It's a just in case plane.
You know, it could be Battlefield Earth Rules where the gas is just always in it. And
or
if you've seen
maybe they didn't show us them pumping gas because that's a boring cinematic element.
Just like you never see people use the bathroom, but we know everybody shits.
Exactly.
So, even Wonder Woman took a shit during Wonder Woman 84. We don't see it, but it happened.
No.
And oh god, and the fact that they just kind of threw out that she has powers now, like making.
Well, she always had powers.
Yeah, I know, but the whole making her her own plane invisible, which I thought was, you know, a nice touch, I guess, but still, like, when did that happen?
I looked up some information on planes, and it says unless the firework went into the actual engine, it would not damage the aircraft. But that fireworks usually are at 100 to 200 feet above the ground. So those fireworks were too high in the air.
But also, like, yes, it would not damage it unless it got into the engine. But would you want to risk it getting into the engine?
I mean, if I had Wonder Woman right next to me, she could just hold me like a little baby as we floated gently to the ground. Yeah, I'd take the risk.
But that plane
was seriously, you got Wonder Woman in the seat next to me.
That plane was more than 250 feet off the ground.
Definitely.
Hopefully.
I mean, they were like, well, they were above the clouds and then they went under. I don't know. But yeah, chances are it was probably higher.
Plain scientists, let us know.
Happening here.
Science.
Plain scientists.
Scientists, call
Where
us
my
in.
plain scientists at?
They're calling.
Did they
Don't
shoot
worry.
fireworks back in World War I do not know, but I would imagine they probably did. Yeah.
Yes, they did.
I would imagine that they may not have been the same kind of fireworks that we have today, but there would have been some kind of fireworks back then, I imagine.
Yeah.
Fireworks are not.
Probably not to the degree that we shoot them now, because we've made it
Because
more.
nobody should.
We've made them so cheap and affordable that anyone can buy them.
Yeah.
And they would have probably been more regulated and expensive back then because of the components.
But as far as like the actual displays, I mean, yeah, they have fireworks going back centuries. And if you go to China, they go back millennia. I mean, fireworks are not a new concept. But then the Diana training thing. I think there's a difference between being trained in general as an Amazonian and trying to be trained as one of their warriors. All Amazonians are, because that was basically a decathlon is what you saw.
But what we saw was athletics.
Yeah, that was an athletic decathlon. That wasn't them training to beat the living
warrior training
shit out of somebody.
Athletics are different.
Right. So
all
I think you can
would participate in PE. All Amazons take PE.
That was Amazon PE Olympics.
They don't all go to Paris Island.
That's a fair analogy. That's fair. But yeah, I think so. I think that there are reasonable explanations for those. But again, the framing, the storytelling, it had issues. Like people go, well, why did we even have the Amazonian decathlon at the beginning of the movie? What purpose did that serve? The whole purpose was that, Wonder Woman Diana has to learn that she can't cheat. She can't take the shortcut. She has to go through, whatever she's going through. She can't try to get around it. Which trying to get Steve back was a cheat.
Yeah, I mean, but still, that's such a lame such a lame parable of that lesson that she learned in the beginning. So lame.
I don't agree, but parables have different mileage for each person, so that's a more subjective term. But I
think like if we had just concentrated on Maxwell Lord, and taking away his I mean, if we swapped out, like if we kept the swap of his wish power, of his wish powers over his powers of persuasion, then at least make the wish demon less hungry than they made it out to be in the movie.
That was one of the things I really liked. Was one of the things that I distinctly remember about the 80s was, I look back on the 80s and there are a lot of things I love about it, but one of the things I hated it when I was a kid, I hated it as an adult, is I was very keenly aware from being a young 4 or 5 year old child all the way into my adulthood that the 80s was nothing but the decade of greed. That's what it's always been. It was greed run amok.
Sure. And I mean,
can I ask for 1 second?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, go
because
for it.
there was a question about during the 4th of July, did they do it in World War I? I will tell you, the first ever fireworks to be celebrated on the 4th of July was 1777. And since then, it has been a tradition in America to have fireworks every year on July 4th.
Yeah.
Right.
Most definitely, we did that
explosions.
in the 80s.
We like blowing things up.
We like blowing things up to celebrate our country.
I mean, if anything, like the 80s was all about explosions. Of course, we had something like with colors.
I think they meant the World War.
World War. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
During World War I times where they still celebrated the 4th of July with fireworks. Yes.
Of course.
Yeah. But so it being the decade of greed, I think Maxwell Lord was actually a really smart choice, and showing him become greedier and greedier. He was also an analog for Wall Street. If you've never seen that, Gecko, one of the main characters played by what's his damn name? From Falling Down, and it's going to bug me now. Hold on. Now I got to go Google it.
I think
Michael Douglas.
Yeah. But I think
but that
cattle
idea.
being it makes it less gross and serious and greedy to me. I think if we had seen it with somebody else that was like grody and like continued to get grodier with his greed, I would have felt a little bit less sorry for him.
But that's the thing, though, is that all the characters that we remember that are the super greedmongers from the 80s are all like the Michael Douglas characters. They're all the super suave. I mean, hell, look at American Psycho, which was in the year 2000, looking back on the 80s, and you have Christian Bale playing, you know, the psychotic Wolf of Wall Street, basically. I mean, he's a day trader who is
yummy.
Oh, see, yeah, no, that doesn't do it for me. That he was very greasy and gross. No.
Oh, yummy.
He did it for other people.
So yummy. Gobble them up.
Boys.
Okay, do I need to go so you guys can have it? So you ladies can have a minute?
I don't really like him.
Christian Bale, no, for me. Pedro,
Not-
yes.
Pedro Pascal, baby.
Feel
Hey,
sorry.
like an Oreo cookie.
Don't feel good.
That's an Oreo I would take one like half of away and put an Oscar Isaac.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say an Asiago, and I was like, dude, we're putting cheese in here now.
Yeah, she's like, sometimes I want cheese on my cookie.
Cheese on your Oreos? What the fuck is wrong with you?
That's a savory cheese, madam.
She's like, you're not Filipino, you don't know. She's like, Christina,
We all got Spanish blood in us, though.
Right. So, but no, I mean, but I think
cheese on my Oreos.
But I think that was one of the more brilliant things that they did in 84 that I really enjoyed was that, you know, that smarmy veneer of I look like I'm successful. I am personable. I'm charming. I have this ability to convince you that what I'm saying is 100% there. You know, lifestyles are rich and famous kind of stuff. But as soon as you take a peek behind the curtain, there's nothing behind it. I thought that was a really nice parallel. And I thought that when presented with the choices in this movie, you know, Diana keeps trying to fight it. She keeps trying to get in its face and trying to say, I can defeat this problem by sheer force of will. I can beat it down, just like in the first movie, right? Like basically, she didn't have to do anything other than just beat the shit out of the problem until the problem went away. Yeah. This problem would not go away. She literally couldn't get to the problem to beat the shit out of it at the end of the movie. Like the force of wishing, which, by the way, weird manifestation of the power. I now have vortex cyclone abilities. I'm not quite sure how that works. But regardless, the fact that the ultimate choice was the only time she was effective at actually making these changes was by getting people to renounce their wish, renouncing her own wish. And I saw a lot of people were really upset at the fact that Diana wasn't aware of the consent issues that we were talking about earlier with this whole body swapping thing. And I kind of thought that was obvious that when she made her wish and she started losing her powers, the first thing she lost was her compassion and her empathy for other people. It started to seriously degrade. She became a much more selfish person. Like that's part of the trade-off, everything that made her special. And for me, you know, if you look at what happens to Minerva, as soon as she wishes to become more like Wonder Woman, she immediately loses all of her ability to be a compassionate human. The thing that makes Wonder Woman is not her superpowers. It is her compassion and her empathy. She lost that immediately. And she was like, I got my boyfriend from the past. I'm going to go get me some D. Excuse me. You know, and it took him, the thing that she loved and would forsake all other things for, telling her she couldn't do it, for her to snap out of it.
I mean, let's really think about this. Like, and this is when I had to put myself in sort of that position. Like, if you died and I was alone and desperately sad and just wanted you back, and I made a wish and you showed back up and you were you, but you really had occupied somebody else's body, but I had you back. Would I really see past the fact that you were occupying technically somebody else's body, or would I just have my Ubu back?
I think eventually, in any
you just use my
story,
pet name. I don't think they've ever heard my pet name before.
Like, I had to really think about it that way because people want to be like, what she did was really wrong, and yes, it was. But when you truly love a person and they're gone, and you really have that ability to get them back, when I thought about it that way, I couldn't judge her anymore because I'm like, I wouldn't turn you away if you were gone, but I could get you back.
Yeah, but I think I wish that she had come to that realization on her own. I'm tired of her morality being kind of steered by somebody else. Like I think that's one of the things I have an issue with, because I don't feel very empowered by her. I feel very empowered by like Black Panther women, because they're very independent and they have their own centers of morality and philosophies, and they don't freaking question it, right? She's always kind of questioning, and she's always kind of seeking somebody to tell her. Even in that circumstance, like, she doesn't come to that on her own. She doesn't go, the world is suffering because of a choice I made. She has to be told that, and I don't like it. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, she's already hundreds of years old, but like,
you should read the New Frontier Wonder Woman.
No, I'm specifically talking about the movie. I am just saying this is
if you've never read New Frontier, and that's what you'd like to see Wonder Woman be, read that.
Well, but I'm saying, like, for my empowerment for the movies, for me to feel empowered as a woman, I would really like the woman to come up with these feelings, these her own center of gravity, her own morality, instead of kind of being nudged that way by people. It's just my nitpicky thing, you know?
I think that she knew it in the back of her head, though.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I know. But I'm just like, ultimately the nudge.
Yeah, ultimately it had to be Steve forcing her to rescind it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice inversion of the trope, right? Because normally in an action movie, the hero is usually a guy, and he's not going to stop doing whatever he has to. And usually it's his companion saying, no, you can't do that. Normally it's a romantic interest, and they're like, no, I can't. You can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. And then he goes, you're right. I must be a better person. They completely flipped it. It's the same trope. They just flipped it, where she's and the guy's like, no, you have to have compassion. And, you know, with Chris Pine and his dreamy eyes and his lips, which apparently everybody's all about. I don't get it.
I'm not about it.
If Brittany was here, Brittany would be all about it. Brittany would be like Chris Pine.
I really don't find him to be that super attractive.
I don't see it either.
He does have nice eyes. Like, if you look at it like this, his eyes are really nice.
Have you seen him in Wrinkle in Time? He's got that silver fox thing going.
Yeah, they did that a little bit. Yeah. But I will say this, and I know this is going to sound really weird, and it's not meant to be any kind of like a diss on him. The man, he has a very nice personality that comes through exceedingly well in his roles. Like when I see him, I'm like, I really like this Chris Pine guy. No, I'm saying like that makes him a much more agreeable person to me as far as an actor. I'm like, yeah, like because other people are like, oh yeah, he's just hot. I'm like, I think I'd really like to just hang out with Chris Pine. Like I would just like want to go and like
sweet person, and he brings that into his characters, and I love that. I think that one of the things another thing I didn't really like was that the turning point for Cheetah, or before she became Cheetah, was when she saw her attacker and she beat the crap out of him, and then like somebody was like, hey, get away from him, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, where were you in the park, dude? Keep walking.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I was actually rooting for her. It's like, is that supposed to be a bad scene?
I'm about that. The asshole and use his ass kick.
I don't want to feel bad for a rapist. This is like Nightmare on Elm Street, the reboot all over again. I don't want to feel sorry for no pedophile or no rapist. I'm sorry.
I gotta be honest. I think them showing her just beating the shit out of the guy
was gonna hit him when he was in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Whole theater.
Okay, I'll be honest. I did not want him to get hit by a car, but I had no problem with her beating the living shit out of him. Like that, I never had a problem with that. I was like, beat the shit out of him. I wouldn't want to get hit by a car. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, that dude deserved the ass whooping. But you know what? I also feel like, I think that was one of those moments they wanted to show just how much she had changed. I don't think that was a negative scene. And people who look at it as, well, that's a very bad scene. I think it's just, for me, it was illustrative of how far she has shifted from the older version of Barbara versus
where she's on that cusp of stepping into her power, but also stepping on the line. And I think most victims have, if we had a moment like that, there's a line. I think it's a dynamic to see.
As like her crossing a line or anything. I just saw it as the moment we got to see that something in her personality was shifting.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
This was a man that just the night, it was the night before.
Yeah, like within 24 hours.
Dinner to on his bench in the park, and she knew his name. And now she's just like, you know?
She's like, get away from me, like
and I felt like that was not indicative of her becoming evil because this guy needed his ass kicked. It was indicative of the shift of her personality from when she
speaking up and coming into her power.
When she
and again, I think
this person, now she doesn't have that empathy anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes back down to what we were talking about earlier, which is that, I think Patty Jenkins has a lot of really, really great ideas. I kind of looking at her a little bit like George Lucas. She needs an intermediary. She needs somebody to kind of come and say, okay, we need to find a better way to tell that story.
The writer. Somebody else is the writer. She's making the art that someone hands to her.
Right. Because I think that when she made that scene, I think those scenes, because they're literally the same scene, they both, I think, are very meritorious. Beating the crap out of that person, having that revenge fantasy, having the ability to beat the living shit out of somebody who has harmed and wronged you. I get that, and especially with something as repugnant as rape, I really get that. But then seeing a person who she would consider a close friend question her and go, oh my God, what are you doing? Not realizing it's her, like, oh my God. And then she knows it's him. It's like, it's okay. He tried to hurt me or something, but she immediately just starts to, just rage at him and then run off. I think those are two moments that are very important, but putting them together like that, it muddies that through line. And it made people go like, well, they had a lot of, I know a lot of people I saw online really dislike that scene because of the fact that it made the revenge aspect of it much more morally questionable for them. And I think most people would agree.
Hardcore revenge. He was coming after her again. He was calling after her again. This is like another attack. Like, I'm sorry. He could have been hit by a bus. I would have been fine.
It's like anyone who had any umbrage with her kicking this guy's ass, is I can't reasonably conceptualize why a person would care about this asshole, who thinks women are just like there to be groped, fondled, and do whatever he feels like it in his drunken stupor. Right. He needs his ass kicked. I don't feel any empathy for him, and I'm glad she did it.
Yeah. I feel like Samuel L. Jackson in A Time to Kill. I killed him, and I'd do it again. Just like that. That's how I feel.
I mean, like,
If she had like punched a kid and took his ice cream cone, that's crossing a line.
Right.
The guy who needed and deserved to have his ass kicked.
So I looked at the writing team for this movie, and Jeff Johns is in it. That's probably why. It's also
Jeff Johns is a great comic writer, but every time he tries to write a movie, he like just points. He takes a shotgun, turns around, and blows his own head off. Like,
and it's like, this makes a whole lot of sense now.
I mean, seriously, he goes ready, shoot, aim every damn time. It's like,
to be honest, like his comic books haven't been great either.
I mean,
lately.
But for the love of God, this is the guy who wrote like one of the most epic, if not the most epic Green Lantern runs of all time.
Yeah.
At his heyday. And they said, hey, can you help us make a Green Lantern script? And he turned in that piece of shit. And this was at like the height of his Green Lantern powers, and he turned in that. Jeff, man, what happened? I mean, look,
he's busy. He's busy doing shit. He got busy.
I don't want to rip on Jeff. I don't want to.
I'm putting my offer back out there. Hollywood.
Right.
I'm here.
We'll help you out.
I got you. I've got 100 years of Wonder Woman up here. She was chained up to a cannonball.
That's a statement.
It was a rocket, but yes, I know exactly. I know exactly what comic book she's talking about.
Okay, that's a statement that was said. Okay, that's a statement.
It's all in here. Call me.
Yeah.
My wife is so subtle. She's
so subtle.
But no, I mean that is, again, I think those are the problems. I think I have more of a problem with Patty Jenkins at this point, and the fact that because she actually just went on an interview today and said Wonder Woman 84 would not have been anything like Wonder Woman 84 if the studios had done what they did in the first movie, which is in the first movie they basically wanted her to direct it, but they were controlling the ideas. And then in the sequel, they basically let her do whatever she wants to. And I'm kind of like, I think you need a rein on you. I think somebody needs to kind of.
There was a whole different writer for the first movie, and he wasn't on it this time.
Yeah, I think maybe you need some other people to kind of wrest a little bit of creative control, because I think the ideas are solid. I think some of the stuff you have in here is really good. I think execution, but I'm also a person, and I confess this regularly. I can see past the flaws of a movie and just embrace the concept behind it. If you don't believe me, I love the first. Laura and I love the first three prequels, or the prequels to the Star Wars trilogy, and we know those movies are riddled with bad acting, plot holes, all kinds of shit. But I love those movies. I unapologetically. Say what?
You're a forgiving bunch.
I have a soft spot
They
for
really
them
are.
because when I got into Star Wars, it was in 1999 when they had just come off of re-releasing all of the original series back into theaters,
right?
And then the first prequel came out. So if it hadn't been for those prequels, I probably would never have gotten into the original stuff. So I have a soft spot for them.
We still have our Phantom Menace toys.
There's bad writing. They took amazing actors and turned them stiff.
Oof.
But behind all of that bad, there's an amazing concept that we got to see in like the Clone Wars.
And in Rebels.
And in building into Rebels. All of this amazing stuff never would happen if we hadn't gotten those prequels.
Yeah, but but the prequels are, at least for me, have become more palatable because of the cartoons.
Right. And I'm hoping that as we get more movies, if they continue on this universe, that as we get more, from Wonder Woman and hopefully supporting movies around it, that we'll look back on 84 as, okay, that was weird, but now look at all the cool stuff that spawned off. That's what I would hope would happen.
As long as they
don't turn it into it, because it really feels like they're trying to emulate Spider-Man to me. Where they have this superhero and it's the villain of the day concept, and it's just a movie to get this superhero on the screen fighting a villain. And that's not really Wonder Woman. So the fact that they've taken two of her main villains and wiped them out in one movie is, what are your intentions here? Like,
for them to just drop, like, name drop a god out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then, like, not going any further than that, it just kind of seems like a cop out.
Yeah, it was Chekhov's gun, right? Like, they introduced the gun, they never fired the gun. You're like, what the hell? I was expecting to be a new god drop or something. I was expected to have a much bigger payoff.
I was expecting that god to show up at the end.
Exactly. And that was a story beat problem that they had an issue with. And I think one of the things that, when I'm looking at all this, and again, by the way, this isn't critique. I'm in very heavy critique mode. When I'm watching the movie, I'm just enjoying it. I look at it and go like, oh, that's going to be an issue. I could see people having a problem with that, but I really like, this, and this, like we talked all about the non-consensual, I'm in a different person's body, but putting that moment to the side, then you have like the fashion show. You have, Steve and Diana actually get to have a relationship for a little while. You get to have him marvel at modern technology, and that was all great. Like one of my favorite scenes is he's just like, wow, this is so cool. And like she's showing him art and he thinks the trash can is art. And then she goes, oh, if you think this is cool. And she takes him to the freaking aerospace museum. And he's like, we went to space? And like his mind's just blown. I'm like, I get that. I get that moment. Those were really great character beats. The Pedro Pascal stuff where he's all, smarmy and, slick as an oil salesman, right? And he's like, oh, I'm super cool. And he's seducing people left and right. And then he gets to his, his giant palatial castle. And it's just, it's just hollowed out on the inside. That I love those beats. I love the decathlon. The one huge problem I have, and this is probably from putting all the problematic stuff on the side, and we can rationalize it and talk about it and find solutions to it. The one issue I truly have is Wonder Woman's donning of the golden armor when she already got her powers back.
Yeah.
Why wasn't she wearing that armor when she was starting to be depowered? Like, okay, fine, that makes sense. You just got your powers back. Bitch, you just learned how to fly. But you know what? Let me go get my armor on because I need to have that Batman and Robin moment where I get to the Mr. Freeze outfit.
To enter with a bang, she was,
Yeah,
Maybe it was the perfect '80s response. Like she just wanted to go all blinged out. Like
she worked for 3 years to find this armor, and she was wearing it. God damn it!
Yeah.
It wasn't like she had just found the last piece. She had found it for so long, she had draped it like a freaking Christmas tree for next year.
She had gotten her power back, and she was stepping into her power with a power outfit. What?
Yeah, I mean, she was very into fashion in the 80s, apparently, and so
I'll take that.
She needed like an extra bling
She wanted to wear it because where the fuck else is she gonna wear it?
Exactly. Yeah. Where are you going to wear an outfit like that? There's only a certain occasions you can do it.
Plus,
it was in the script. So,
but yeah, you know what? There are many times where Laura will ask me a question, especially when we're watching horror movies. She goes, "Why the hell did they just do that stupid thing?" I was like, "It was in the script." And
it's literal plot armor.
Yeah, or we won't have that moment, or this, like every time they do something stupid in a horror movie, you just go, "They wouldn't have a movie. We wouldn't have a movie if they weren't that dumb." It's
right.
We wouldn't have that moment.
Wear it once and then let Sheeta ruin it. Right? Seriously, she just got it all back together. I got my armor back together, and then Sheeta just completely
yeah.
She'll put it back together. It'll be okay.
Yeah, but the thing that really upset me about that was. And this is me being a big Wonder Woman's in my top 3 all-time favorite characters. The golden armor originally came from a story called Kingdom Come. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but it was an Elseworld story about this man who sees the future of the DC universe, where it's been a few generations of these heroes around, and they've gone really, really dark. And it's funny because we talk about how DC is so dark. This is way darker than anything we've seen. The modern heroes are just so much worse than the stuff that we thought we would see. And because of that, a lot of the older heroes have become a much more tough, a much more hardened superhero. And Wonder Woman, as a result of that, is just she's almost completely removed from the world. And it's the return of characters during the story that makes her kind of find her hope again. And so when she finds her hope, she gets this armor out. She's like, I'm wearing this because this is my signal that I'm trying to be a hopeful person once more. And I was like, great. But she's also like, but she even says it in the book. She's like, but this is also armor to go kick ass in. So let's go and declare war. So I'm like, great. I didn't really have that moment in this movie. And since I love that look so much, I've loved that work since the original Mark Waid and Alex Ross comics way back in the 90s. I really wanted that moment. I really wanted her to explain, this is why I'm wearing it. And it never happened. She just shows up in it. I'm like, okay, well, that was a choice.
But how expository would that be? If she stopped and she's like, listen, the reason I'm wearing this armor right now, just for you, Shaun, is because, I don't know why she has that accent, but she does.
I'm wearing this armor
because she's Israeli, right? Yeah, she just, yeah.
I spent $10 million on this armor, and I'm wearing it, goddammit.
I'm wearing it.
I mean, yeah, basically, but I think that's one of those things where Patty Jenkins just saw it in like one of the art books. They said, here's some of the greatest Wonder Woman stories. She goes, I want that golden armor in my movie.
Yeah, but read the book also. God damn it.
A little bit, right? I mean,
that would have been kind of stepping back into hope.
Because, honestly, what would have been great was that armor would have been great during the fight with Doomsday and Batman v Superman. Quite frankly, that's when she should have put that armor on, because that's the moment where she decides to come back to the world.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that would have been nice.
But this is because Patty Jenkins, the moment before she comes back to the world.
Right, because Patty Jenkins said that there's going to be a third movie, and the third movie is going to be supposedly the reason why she kind of removes herself from the world again. So, I don't know. But, yeah.
I'm sure it has to do with a boy.
So we had a comment here. DC's always had a problem with directors. Only Christopher Nolan has made more than 2 movies without problems.
WBDC has always had they've always kind of been sitting on that fence of my shit list since Watchmen.
Yeah.
Well, not the TV series.
Not the TV series, the movie.
Yeah. I'm going to speculate, and I don't know, but I feel like it's because they rely on their comic book writers to also be their script writers. And writing a comic book and writing a movie are 2 completely different things. And how you approach it, how you dialogue it, everything is different. And that's why what works in a story in a book form does not work narratively when you put it on a screen. Because they're not putting, as someone else used to tell me, they're not putting the birds in their right little bird houses. And there's perhaps that's why they struggle, is because they're not looking outward. They continue to look inward.
Well, I think, teeing off on your point, I think one thing that we can all agree on is, at least as far as the movies are concerned, they have a real problem cultivating talented directors, not necessarily grade A directors, because again, Patty Jenkins, great director. I have no problems with her. Christopher Nolan, good director. But they don't have the proper cultivation of talent to continue this kind of trend. If you look at Marvel, they went with Favreau. Favreau really did not have the lineage needed to pull off what would be considered one of the greatest comic book movies of all time in Iron Man 1. Right?
He's a fan.
Exactly. And they're not cultivating the right kind of talents.
They're not getting those right little birds to show optimally this giant universe that they're trying to deliver. They're just they're using the same people who have done the same thing over and over, the same writers over and over, and then wondering why it isn't working.
Right. And we have a comment here that says, DC struggles. Examples is you have good TV shows, but they struggle so hard on the big screen. Look at the good TV DC shows. I call it the DCW. If you look at the DCW shows, they consistently find a way to put out pretty good product by and large. I mean, the Flash has had some pretty big dips, and I hate admitting that as like the world's foremost Flash.
And a lot of those fans directed too. They got people like Kevin Smith to come in and direct those. He's the biggest fanboy in the world, you know? So I really, I'm tooting my own horn here, but this is what they need to do. They need to start thinking, who else is out there? Let's get some ideas.
Right. And I think, go ahead. I'm sorry, please.
I mean, just and they always get, the ones that we always read about are all and I hate, I'm going to use the term anyway, the good old boys of their author team, basically. And
are you talking about Goyer?
Everyone. Goyer, Johns, just Miller.
What's his name?
Which was that?
The crazy guy. He's all LSD'd out.
Grant Morrison.
Oh, Grant Morrison. Yeah. They always go to those guys, but they haven't been very consistent in their own storytelling in comic books.
Right.
And they're constantly recycling their old ideas in comic books and in the movies. And they should know that we're all tired of it, right? They have other voices in their employ already. They just not utilizing them.
If you want a great example of that, Christina, just look at their animated division. Their animated division for 25 years basically ran unfettered. And they were knocking out hit after hit after hit. You started with Batman, the animated series. You had Superman. You had Batman and Superman Adventures, Justice League Unlimited. You had Young Justice. You had the Green Lantern series. I mean, they just kept firing off hit after hit. And all the animated movies that went with that. Did they think once to cultivate any of the writers of those teams to bring some of those characters to the big screen? They never did. It's like they treat them as the naughty stepchildren in the corner, and it's
maybe just the executive producers. But they come up with the money, or just have their just have their name on the title.
But just look at what they did. And you know that they have the ability to quality or to pull the quality kind of writers and creators out there. Quaylee Cuoco, what is her name?
Haley Cuoco.
Thank you. Her version of
Kaylee.
Is it Haley?
Kaylee.
Sorry. Kaylee Cuoco's Harley Quinn. Fantastic. She did a great job of that. If you look at their version of Stargirl that came out last year around this time, fantastic. Swamp Thing knocked out of the park. Doom Patrol crushed it. Watchmen killed it. And these were all people who were passionate about those characters, who were passionate about those projects, and they brought them in. I think Warner Brothers is afraid of their big trinity. I think they're afraid of Superman. I think they're afraid of Batman. And they're afraid of Superman. I think they're afraid of messing up those characters, so they try to go with people who have more style over substance.
I don't think they're afraid enough.
Well, I mean, like, go back all the way to my favorite version of Batman.
To see the movie, whether it's bad or not, everyone watches it.
Oh,
they
yeah.
True. Money.
Yeah, they don't care. As long as they have our money, they don't care, you know.
Right. And that's what sucks, because we all know that we're gonna see it anyway, but it's at least make us think that we're not wasting our time.
I always have hope, and that's the thing. And people who have been with us on this channel, Christina knows because she's a friend of mine. I'm the most optimistic MFer you're ever going to meet in your life. So every time they say a new DC movie's coming out, I'm like, this one's going to be the one. It's never the one.
It's dog shit.
It's just not, and I'm okay with that. Wonder Woman was the closest I had in the last decade of it being the one.
You know what's the one for me now? I mean, because the first Wonder Woman's fire, like we all know that.
Yeah.
But the one that
Anastasia disagrees. She's like,
I mean, I know, but it's always because with this current Wonder Woman, I mean, with the first Wonder Woman movie, I always think of No Man's Land as that defining scene of the whole movie. But and there were some boring parts in that first one, but No Man's Land, fire. But anyway, the one that I always go back to because they hit it so hard on the nail is Shazam.
Oh, Shazam is fantastic.
That's the only movie that I will watch over and over again.
And Shazam is a movie that Christina, we went to go see it together at the
I
theater.
love him so much.
What's a theater?
Yeah.
We saw it at the movie box place.
Oh,
the giant movie on the wall.
But we saw that in the theater and we loved it so much. And we were so bummed that people did not discover that movie until it came out basically on, VOD and came out on HBO and stuff. Like, yeah. I was so mad that movie did not get a bigger just applause because Shazam
loves Zachary Levi.
Yeah.
Zachary Levi's so good in that movie.
He killed it. And kudos.
Is so downtrodden and just depressed and wasn't he suicidal at some point?
Yeah,
was he?
If you don't know the story, okay, so here's the story. So Zach Levi coming off of Chuck. And again, if you've never seen Chuck, go watch Chuck. Amazing TV show. Love that TV show through and through. Where basically, by the way, the main character is constantly the damsel in distress until halfway through the show. It's 5 seasons long. Midway through the 3rd season, he basically becomes equal with his girlfriend, who is the hero of the show technically, and he's the damsel who's always getting saved. It's a great trope reversal. When that show ended, he had been vying desperately to get into comic book movies, and he basically had locked down Guardians of the Galaxy's Star-Lord. And then Chris Pratt came in, and basically they said, well, we're going to go with Chris Pratt instead. And that's when Zach Levi basically he's come out and talked about the fact that he almost committed suicide. He was on the precipice of committing suicide because he had always tried to go for the next role. He was always trying to find the next role that was going to make him the star that he wanted to be. And he was so focused on trying to chase that dream that he basically destroyed his own self-esteem. He basically lost his marriage. And he was, he was like, this is it. I'm done. Life is not worth living. He hit rock bottom, and then he more or less rebuilt himself and said, I'm going to just keep working and I'm going to see what happens. And so when they gave him a chance to be Fandral in the second Thor movie, he was like, screw it, I'll be Fandral. I'll be in a comic book movie. And he loved it. He was like, best experience of his life because he no longer had expectations on himself. And then somebody basically said, hey, would you like to be Shazam? And he was like, I will show up every day at 150% if you let me be Shazam. And if you've seen that movie, he did exactly that. He's so good.
Killed it. He's so good at it. I love him.
And he's such an advocate now for mental health. That's a big thing that he does now. So he's a huge advocate.
I just want to hold him though, because I love him so much, and I loved him in Chuck so much. And then when I heard that, I was just like,
I didn't hear about any of it, and I never watched Chuck, but I just love him.
You have to watch Chuck
as a performer.
Christina, you have to watch Chuck. Chuck is so good.
I've been so resistant on it because everyone kept. I was like you. I was pulling a you, Shaun. Where I was like, I was being so resistant. At the time it was airing, it's like no.
Hey, I finally watched Bob Burgers. You got to watch Chuck, okay?
That's right. Watch it.
You have a deficit, okay?
Is it on Hulu or Netflix?
I don't
know. It's on Amazon.
It was on Amazon for a long time. Let me go see. Yeah, it was on Prime for a long time. Let me go look. Sorry, this is more important than all other conversations. If I get Christina to watch Chuck, I've done my good deed for the day.
I'm 100% certain it's on Prime.
Okay, well, I mean, is that a threat, Laura? But,
yes, it is still on Prime, so you can watch all of Chuck.
Burn your house down.
But I mean, speaking on the part of positivity and hopefulness, that's not where I usually took my Wonder Woman,
Right?
And so so what we're getting out of Wonder Woman is what we should have gotten out of Superman.
A little bit, yeah. And a lot of people said that this felt a lot like Superman 3. The kind of, I am hoping I'll come back from my own darkest little despair, because Superman 3, of course, is where he fights himself because of the red kryptonite, and he gets drunk and he's flicking peas at the windows and stuff. Like he's just being an all-around.
Like the weird powers and that S. Isn't that the same one where the S comes out and it traps the enemies?
No, that's Superman 2. No, the giant cellophane S is Superman 2. Yeah, that's how he catches Non. That's how he catches Non as he throws a big super.
That was a weird moment.
It's yes, the giant S is weird. But we did have that giant S moment in Wonder Woman where basically her magic lasso got all kinds of new powers that we never knew before.
Yeah, like lassoing clouds.
Sometimes you have to lasso
and thunder.
Yeah, but you know what? But people are like, her lasso can't do that. I was like, says who? She almost never uses her lasso for anything other than making people tell the truth. Her lasso could literally start talking tomorrow, and people would say, yeah, it's always had the chance to do that. We just never showed you. I mean,
it's magic.
It's magic. I mean, seriously.
I'm glad that her lasso got more use in this movie other than her sword and shield. I mean, she didn't use her sword and shield at all in this movie.
Not at all.
So, like, her lasso was her
lasso.
Mm-hmm.
That's my lasso.
I love the lasso.
Lasso Daddy Mando.
I'll be honest. I really loved all the lasso work in this movie. The one thing I didn't enjoy was whenever you're trying to show super speed, go to people who actually successfully have pulled off the trick of super speed. Because when you try to show somebody running faster than a human can run, there's a very specific way of doing it. And when you don't do it that way, it looks weird. Exhibit A is Wonder Woman running down the road, and you can see that her feet aren't quite making contact with the ground, and she's just running too fast. You're like, they didn't quite land that special effect.
I don't know. I mean, I think it was. I'd have to look at that scene again, but I was like, my only thought when I saw that, I was like, damn, she's really hauling ass.
Yes.
But because I have back when I did run, back when I was a runner. There was these sensations where I was like, damn, I'm going really fast. It doesn't really feel like I'm on the ground anymore. But and that's how I took it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like I said, it's not a horrible thing. It's just one of those little nitpicks. That was one of my nitpicks for me. That and the armor.
That's your nitpick.
That was my nitpick, yeah.
Okay, we all have a nitpick.
Yes, we all have a nitpick.
Well, Shaun is a Speed Force fan, so.
Yeah.
Super speed is one of those things that I get real uppity about.
Yeah, and I mean, on the whole,
uppity about running real fast.
I get uppity about running fast. Yeah.
On the whole, I think Wonder Woman 84 is a fine movie. I just think it could have been worked on a little bit more without any ego of the writing team.
Yeah. And I think that delaying it as long as they did also
it's a fun movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's a fun movie. Don't dive too much into it. That's
this is one where you like. This is definitely a sophomore-itis type hero movie.
I agree.
It's at
the point that you can massively screw up, but if you truly mean it, you can redeem yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one too.
There are going to be serious implications for Maxwell Lord because I think
he's going to jail.
Oh, he going to jail. He probably going to Gitmo.
So, I want to transition here the last little bit because one thing that actually did really upset me was
going to Gitmo. He's going to that bunker in Colorado where they sent Dean and Sam.
Yeah.
Or Belle Reeve with the rest of the Suicide Squad or something. Keep the universe, but whatever.
Secure enough.
Oh, it's not secure enough. Okay.
No, he's got to go to that Colorado bunker.
So the last thing I want to talk about today is something that is not Wonder Woman 84's fault. It's not the other movie's fault. It's people trying to have competitions no matter where they are with what they're doing, which is on Christmas Day, 2 major movies were dropped at the same time. Wonder Woman was dropped on HBO Max, and Disney dropped Soul on us.
Right.
And people
we
were
don't
like,
have another 2 hours to talk about.
no. I'm not going to go into all that. But what I am going to get into is the fact that I really hate the fact that people said, if you have to choose a movie, choose Soul over Wonder Woman 84. I was like, bitch, I watched both back to back, and it was awesome.
I did watch both, but I was like, if you don't have time for both in one day, I suggest watching Soul.
Yeah,
Watch them in the same weekend.
Yeah, that just really flustered me, is that people were like, if you have to pick one or the other. I'm like, whoa, what's this having to pick bullshit? Like, they're both going to be there. Like, why are we having to choose between A or B? And that really frustrated me because it made this competition show up. Well, Soul was clearly the better of the 2 movies. So I'm like, these are not 2 movies that you really...
I know. But if you did not have either subscription and you wanted to check either movie out, either or would be the argument to have.
I think if you want to watch a Pixar movie, you go watch Soul. If you want to watch a comic book movie, a brand new one, you go watch Wonder Woman. I think comparing them, they're only the same in the fact that they're both movies, but they're 2 vastly different storytelling techniques. They're 2 vastly different flicks.
Definitely.
So to try to compare them, I'm just like, it's like when people say, well, they look at like 2 different movies, like, well, Iron Man 2 made way more money than There Will Be Blood. And I'm like, why are you even comparing those 2 fucking movies? Like,
because the first 15 minutes of There Will Be Blood, you're like, is the sound wrong? Is the sound?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, why are we comparing these 2 movies? These are not the 2 movies to compare to one another. Like, what the hell? You compare a comic movie with another comic movie. You don't compare it with a Pixar movie. And let's be fair, almost every Pixar movie ever released is going to be a top tier movie. It's just, that's a Pixar movie. I mean, argue with...
Pixar movies are deep. They have meaning. And Wonder Woman is a legendary like superhero movie that you need to see. You should probably see both, but if you can only see one, I get like I probably would have seen Soul over Wonder Woman. But that just aligns with my personal taste.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I watched before both of those movies.
What'd you watch?
The new Witches movie on HBO Max.
I want to watch that. I gotta watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
I watched that one when it first came out like a month ago.
I feel like I was forced to watch Bridgerton instead.
I don't remember watching it.
Yeah, you do, Laura. Remember the Anne Hathaway movie, the mice? Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I feel like the story beats in that one made a lot more sense than the original.
I mean, the one thing I give them credit for in the remake, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, the special effects were better in the original. I was like, well, practical effects are always going to have something a little, je ne sais quoi to it. I really liked the special effects for this new one. The mice in this new one, fantastic for witches. But the thing I really enjoyed was that at the end of the original Roald Dahl book, the main character, the protagonist, never becomes human again. He stays a mouse. And in the 1990 version, they gave him a nice, happy storybook ending where he gets turned back into a little boy and everybody's happy. And there are now good witches because the witches didn't like eating children, even though they're demons.
Yeah, like that one assistant who was supposed to be a bad witch was suddenly a good witch. Is like, when did that happen?
Yeah, it's a very weird.
Like, was she always a good
Darth
witch?
Vader.
Yeah, she Darth Vadered right at the end, and then she went off into the night. Like, it's a very weird moment. Whereas in the new version of it, they not only embrace the idea that he doesn't turn back into being a little boy, they kind of up the ante a little bit. And I'm like, I want a sequel now. Like,
they were recruiting.
Like, if you've not seen it, the ending of this movie is legit. Like, oh, they went hardcore on this. Like, it is not a.
They leaned into that weirdness.
They did. They leaned into it in a big way. Big leaning. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I'll be honest. The streaming services have really upped their game as far as releasing some of these products. I think HBO Max made a good call with this whole let's just start releasing these movies, because we're not going to get them back in theaters with enough time. Let's just start to at least
people aren't going into theaters even.
Let's at least buff up our streaming services. Yeah. I mean,
the call, like how they made that call was shitty, but they're a studio who wants to make money, and putting them on their streaming services made them money.
Yeah, I think the one thing that they need to do is they need to renegotiate with the creators, obviously, as far as because there are like back end deals and stuff where creators get a certain amount of profits and whatnot. Obviously, that doesn't work when you're going directly to streaming. That needs to be renegotiated
to regain their trust.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some renegotiations there, and I think if Warner Brothers and the other streaming services are working in good faith, they nip that now instead of a year or two down the line when arbitration has to become mandatory because directors are just going to stop working with certain studios. So, but I think if they're smart, they're already working behind the scenes on that. So we'll see. But yeah, like that. Yeah, 84, fun movie. I enjoyed it a lot, and the fact that, and I'm one of those people. If I really like something, and then people come down and they start trashing on it hard, I'm a double downer. I really love that movie.
You are a double downer.
So I've doubled down on Wonder Woman 84. I'm like, I like this movie, whatever. And if people try to point out the flaws, I'm like, I see that flaw. I deny it.
Yeah, no, that's that has been what he's been doing on Facebook among friends. And I was like, he was just stomping his foot and crossing his legs. Like, no.
Okay, look, this happened. No,
don't be a denier.
Only when it comes to stuff that truly does not matter, like movies that I like. Okay, like I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm not going to sit here and go like, well, that vaccine doesn't really work. Okay,
all right. Because the internet is denying Helen Keller existed, so I'm making sure.
Wait, what?
No. I'm talking about like the prequels are good movies, and I'll die on this hill. Damn it, that's the kind of shit.
That's better. That's better.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Stupid stuff, like how, and I love the fact that I have brought Christina over to this side of the aisle to a certain degree. Really bad horror movies are amazing if looked through the right prism.
Correct. I agree with that.
Like if you want to have a really good time, find the right really bad movie and you will just have a delight. But you got to be in the right
last bad movie that we watched.
Oh God. I mean, Laura and I, we just went through that Christmas, that Joe Bob Christmas special, and they had two beauties back to back. They had what was the first one? The second one was Christmas Evil.
Oh yeah.
And then there was another one, and it's a what was it? It was English, wasn't it, Laura? Or was it? No, it was Finnish. I forget what the hell movie it was, but it was basically this guy went psychotic at a mall, and he basically tried to. His boss fired him, and he knew that the boss's child was at home, and this kid lives like in a mansion.
French.
It was French, yeah. And so he goes to the kid.
Home Alone was based on.
So the people claim that what's his name, John Hughes, saw this movie and wrote Home Alone as a weird homage.
But in court, it was not influenced at all by this movie.
Right.
According to the court.
According to the courts, it never happened, but there are a lot of similarities, which is basically a psycho chases a kid down in a house, and the kid makes a bunch of booby traps to stop this Santa.
Oh yeah, totally.
And it came out a year before Home Alone.
In the French version, kills their dog.
Yeah, the Santa
and the groundskeeper. He kills the dog and the groundskeeper and the delivery guy whose truck he stole to get into the property.
Right.
Instantly bad movie if you kill the dog.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't like that.
But you know what, Joe Bob is a saint because you know what he did? He put a little thing at the bottom, warning, so that everyone who did not want to see the dog could stop. And then you could come back again. He told you when it was safe to come back.
The only time I have forgiven a movie for killing a dog or a puppy is John Wick.
No, I don't. That was like the longest scene ever. It was so hard.
Oh no, it was so bad. But he went on a rampage.
He still is. 3 movies later, he's still on a rampage.
3 movies later, and he got another dog, and that dog survived.
Yes, he's like, nobody's hurting my second dog. But I mean, that's one of those things. I'll totally double down on. But
a doggo running through New York City without a leash, just
yeah.
And John Wick just has to go come, heel, stay. The dog's like, I'm here for you. What do you need?
There's a picture of me holding that dog. He's so cute. He was so fluffy.
So cute.
He's like, where did you find the time to even train that particular dog? Because he just found him in the vet where he almost died.
That's how awesome John Wick is. John Wick has an instant mental telepathic link to all puppies.
He can talk to the puppy.
He just that's his power.
And Halle Berry's doggos.
Yes. Oh, Halle Berry's dogs were awesome. They were so good. And I love the fact that when one of them gets shot, there's a whole moment. She's like, the dog's going to live. And you're like, yes, dog's going to live.
Yeah, because she had bulletproof vests for them.
They had
as you should for your puppies.
The John Wick movies are awesome, and I love the fact that literally the whole movie is you killed my dog. Now I'm just going to go on a spree until they stop making movies.
Yeah.
Like I know that the plot has moved beyond the dogs, but it basically all still boils down to you hurt my dog. I'm coming for you until
like that was the final straw. I mean, of course, it's a little bit more nuanced with that, but literally killing the puppy was what broke the camel's back, as they say.
That was it. But no, going back to what we were saying though about me, like just like doubling down on it. I posted basically, I liked Wonder Woman 84 on my Facebook page on the day it came out, and people were just like, they were giving me like the tallying of tallies. Well, this isn't a blah 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 blah, and I'm like, well, that's great. I'm like, Christina said didn't like it. I was like, sorry, you didn't like it. That was the extent of our conversation because I didn't feel the need to try to correct her thoughts. She didn't feel the need to correct mine. That's fine. Other people did not.
You enjoyed it. That's fine. That's cool. I'm glad you found enjoyment. I didn't like it, but for totally valid reasons that I'm not going to talk about. But it's like,
right. Well, we talked about them now, but I mean, at the time, you know, you're like, yeah, you know.
At the time, it's like, okay.
But other people
that's
were
our unspoken agreement.
Yes, but other people were very much like they were just getting into it. And I was like, well, I don't agree, but that's okay. You whatever you like or don't like, that's fine with me. So a couple days go by, and a friend of mine, and he explained it to me afterwards, but the way he said it was, I really don't like this movie. I'm still thinking about it. And then he tagged me, said, this is a reason that I feel explains why I don't like this movie. Do you have a retort? And he wanted me to basically explain why I did like the movie. He wanted somebody to say, hey, I really want to understand where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. But it sounded basically like, you know, I don't like this movie. This is why I don't like this movie. And why do you like this movie? You know, justify yourself. And I'm like, I don't have to justify. I was like, first off, I don't have to justify dick to you. And I was like, I can like a movie and you can dislike a movie. And there's no reason for us to ever have to discuss that.
But
and
people
I was like,
do that. They force that on you. Like they did that when it was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out.
Yeah.
I told people, I don't like it. I'm leave me alone in my grief. And people were like, but why? But why? Explain to me. And I was like,
why were you in grief? Did you want to like the movie and you just didn't like it? Or what's the grief side?
The grief side is that for years and years and years, I was a Quentin Tarantino fan, and I defended his actions, and I kept seeing that he did not like people like me, meaning people of color and women, and it just, every movie just, it seeped in more, and I was like, no, but he still loves us. He's still, and then when I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I think Quentin Tarantino has a bit of a problem with the fact that he was raised with a black father, and his dad basically kind of raised him like he would any a kid, and so he took a lot of stuff that in their household totally okay, but he walked out feeling like he's black, but he's like Italian white, and just throwing it out like do something.
Yeah,
and it's like unless you kind of know his backstory, it's like it's a little hard, And then he, like you said, he just kind of doubles down on a lot. You're like.
You just please stop.
I can feel that. I can totally understand that. I get that. So sorry about that though. So I'm bummed, but I feel you. I feel you though. There are some directors where I'm like that now. Where I'm like, I'm not gonna follow their work anymore. Like I'm done. We talked about, I think we were talking a few shows back about how I won't patron any more Kevin Spacey movies, like ever, right? Like ever. But like, there are still some Kevin Spacey movies like I will watch them because I still like those movies. I already own them. I can't.
Baby Driver is so good.
Baby Driver, like,
Baby Driver is amazing. Seven is amazing. I'm sorry.
And you get to watch him die in both those movies. So
very, very true.
It's true. I mean, you kind of get a newfound catharsism.
Right. Laura, are you okay there?
Dogs woke up. I think they need to go out.
You put your head down, and it looked like you froze on your head being down, and it looked like you'd fallen asleep for a second.
Oh no!
You're just so sad.
My desk is glass, so I can just like look down to the dogs who sleep under it.
Right.
So they woke up. I think they need to go outside. So
that's no problem. We need to wrap up here in a couple minutes, anyways. But like I was saying, I think that when we're looking at movies and when you don't like a movie, that's fine. But just be kind of conscious of how you're approaching your friends with it. Because I talked to him, I was like, look, we're fine. I understand that you're not trying to pick a fight. It's cool. I even sent him a private message in private saying, I know that you're not trying to pick a fight. I'm just flustered at the fact that there are a lot of people who are choosing to tag me in this stuff because They want to know why I like it versus just accepting the fact that somebody they know liked the movie. And I'm like, there's confrontation for honest, like, enlightenment, and then there's confrontation without understanding. And I was like, the way you presented your question, it wasn't very enlightened. It was just very much just kind of like, I want to ask this question, justify yourself. And I'm like, I don't have to justify shit when it comes to me enjoying a movie.
Shit.
It's like, so that was kind of me on that one. So I try to be very aware of that. And it's funny because when I originally was putting together today's panel, there were a couple people who were like, I don't want to talk about it, because one of our friends is like deeply hurt because she said, I like Wonder Woman. And she's been raked over the coals on social media for like 2 weeks now, like consistently. And I was like, hey, do you want to talk about this at all? And she was like, fuck no. I'm like, fair enough.
Oh, yeah. Like, people were just like, it's one thing to disagree with, with people, even random strangers on the internet, but it's a whole other thing when you just fucking attack them for liking something. And it's just like, just unlike the movie, you don't have to attack anyone who is declared that they did.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the problem. It's like we are in the age of like everybody just going at each other. And it's just like, it's okay if somebody likes it. And if you don't, it's okay. Just don't watch it together.
Yeah. Just don't watch that together and find things that you do like, and again, confrontation is good for things that matter. When you have a disagreement on something, that truly is important, have those conversations, as uncomfortable as there's going to be. But if you're applying that same energy to a movie, maybe take a step back and question why you're applying that much scrutiny to the movie and why it's that important for you to have that confrontation. We were talking about this before we went live. I pretty much, the way I look at things is I, on a person by person basis, weigh whether or not I want to have a confrontation story with you, because when I want to confront you with something and I want to talk to you about something, I want to know that you're worth the energy, not necessarily because of any particular views that you have, but because I value you as a person, a friend, family member, whatever. So if I take the time to actually have that conversation, I believe that you are somebody who is genuinely valuable in my life, even though we may disagree on something fundamental or whatever. When you apply that same kind of energy to a movie, I mean, I've literally had people like in friendships over movies and TV shows. And this is like in the 90s and early 2000s, before it got as intense as it is today. And I'm just like, I look back at it and I go like,
last year over Ray being a Mary Sue.
Oh, right.
I still have trouble understanding that one, but whatever. I
tried so hard to get him to actually tell me why, and he couldn't. He would just like spout off some stupid shit, and I'm like, yes. And how is this different than what Luke did in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, he was just parroting.
That's what I would get back. So it's just like
parroting like the negative energy that he was already feeling, but he was given words, like hot buzzwords.
This is how I imagine internet trolls typing.
But like, I mean, just to, and I guess Shaun, you want to just to kind of, round it out, summarize about what we've been talking about, because like there are some people who are just turning in.
So yeah, basically, what we're talking. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, just like overall, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
The plot, as you said before earlier in this podcast, the plot was wholesome. It was positive. We got what we should have gotten with Superman, but got it in Wonder Woman.
Right.
They kind of did like a little role reversal, because definitely Wonder Woman would have done that next snap with Zod. But because that's why she doesn't have like a whole lot of enemies, because she kills them.
Yeah, that's one of her famous lines. It's like, the reason I don't have recurring villains is because I take care of my business. Like, she actually told Batman that. She's like, when I deal with the villain, they're dealt with.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping and expecting for that kind of Wonder Woman to come into my screen, but I don't hate this wholesome, positive Wonder Woman, because we don't have that in our DC heroes right now. We
need the wholesome police. We need Shazam and Wonder Woman to like show up, and like Stargirl.
Yeah, I mean, in our movies we have Shazam and we have Wonder Woman as the positivity buffs in the DCEU. But
I think the Flash will be too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that, but but with the sequel, it totally is an unfortunate sequelitis that they wanted to do too many things all at once and not giving breath to any idea that they introduced.
Especially since they keep trying to do this Marvel technique of we're going to inform one story that's going to inform the next. If you're trying to build up that kind of world where your stories are going to continue to build up, allow characters to have growth over the span of movies. Allow yourself to introduce Maxwell Lord in the 80s and then reintroduce him 36 years later as an old man, and his son has now come into his own powers or something. Who knows? I mean, there's
would it have been to make him like later on the big bad if you had just developed his character a little bit more inside instead of him going absolutely insane.
Right.
But your explanation for the 80s being like the total era of just like greed.
Yeah,
it fits. But I mean, just also narrative wise, he can have that moment but still kind of have like a long game plan.
I think that's what it is I think they just need to allow their characters to grow. Supporting characters can grow, and you can build up a pantheon, so to speak, of characters, and you don't have to kill off all your villains all in one big blump. It's okay. Especially when you make morally gray characters like they made for Maxwell Gold, Jesus, Max Lord and Cheetah. They're pretty morally gray in these movies. In this movie, so like you can allow them to evolve. I mean, I would love to see Barbara Minerva come back in the 90s, and she still feels bad about kind of going, a little too over the top, and she's trying to redeem herself or something, and
or she wants that power back, and her being the anthropologist that she is goes on an expedition.
Something. I mean, anything. Yeah. So
I mean, there's a lot of nitpicks, but on the whole, plot wise, it's still hopeful. It's just the execution was just.
Yeah, Patty Jenkins needed somebody to kind of come in there and rein her in a little bit. Yeah, she was having a George Lucas effect, unfortunately. And I think that hopefully in the future they'll have a little bit more control over trying to bring in maybe not editorial staff, but maybe some producers who will be able to kind of help sculpt the message into a more
better writers,
refined writing. Yeah. Because I really enjoyed it. Let's see here. Hold on. We got a little thing here. We have they need to have a sit down and identify strategy more than a single standing movie. I agree. And then also it was a positive and heartfelt movie. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. And I like the fact that it ended at Christmas time. I have a soft spot. Anytime a movie, especially a superhero movie, ends at Christmas time. Seriously, it's a Christmas like Shazam, Christmas movie. Wonder Woman 84, Christmas movie. Batman Returns, Christmas movie. Like, it doesn't
I think
take
whatever makes you feel the Christmas spirit is a Christmas movie.
Yes.
Basically. Absolutely.
There should be no debate. It should just be whatever's a Christmas movie to you.
Yes. The Hobbit trilogy, Christmas movies.
Sure, but I'm not gonna watch that. I'm not gonna watch it again.
Shut your mouth. You're wrong. I'll fight you on this one.
That is the hill that you will die on.
That is another hill.
On the hill of the Hobbit. I love the Hobbit.
Yes, it's true. We do love the Hobbit movies, but that we've already talked about that. We talked about that on the Christmas show. So, but yeah, I want to say thanks to everybody who was here today. Anastasia and Christina, thank you so much for hanging out with us and geeking out over a lot of stuff.
A lot of things.
Lots of things. That's how we roll. We can't just stick on one topic.
But that's the fun part about this is it's like 2 hours of us just geeking out and going nuts. But I also want to thank Laura because Laura was absolutely, as soon as I said, hey, should we do this? She was so fast on the computer. Yes, we're going to talk about Wonder Woman. If anybody was like waving the flag of Wonder Woman 84 as soon as this movie was over, it was her. She was like, this movie rocks. I mean, she was ready for it. She was very not happy.
I think there's like I said earlier, there's a lot of tones in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the subtle messages that are in this movie that if you pull them out and you take away all the things like that are, like the body snatching and whatever and flying through fireworks and white saviors in Egypt, if you take all that away, but you get to the core message of redemption and hope and love, that if that's your own, just take that away from this movie and put a little of that into yourself for this new year. And
Put it in yourself.
You do.
But you know what? I absolutely, for the third movie, I absolutely need for us to be back on Themyscira a little bit longer.
I mean, there's so many stories they could tell. I mean, the thing I want them to
I want
start
Athena.
what I want them to do is I want them to go look at some of like the Gail Simone books. I want them to go look at some of the Rucka books.
Oh yeah,
those are like some of my
awesome
favorites. Like I almost said Star Wars stories, Wonder Woman stories.
Star Wars stories.
I almost said Star Wars stories.
Wonder Woman in space.
I mean, there are a few of them out there. But one thing I think would be amazing, and they'll never pull it off. Let's say what, Laura?
They have a space station.
They do. They have the JLA space station. They're the Justice League space station. My hope against hope, if they ever have enough of these movies back to back, is I would love for them to actually try to pull off Odyssey, which is one of my favorite Wonder Woman stories.
Yeah, they'll never do it.
It was the very last Wonder Woman story that they told before they rebooted everything in the New 52. And we've talked about the New 52 and how that was a.
But you know what? They could probably. I mean, because DC and Warner Brothers are absolutely playing or like considering or playing with the multiverse.
They are.
It is possible if you get another actress, maybe a younger actress, or just like someone else entirely to do Odyssey. Like maybe another Amazon because they don't want to spend all that money for an entire series.
I still think they could get away with it with Gal Gadot. I think Gal Gadot could pull it off. For those of you who don't know, Odyssey is basically a story of Wonder Woman discovers that she's an Amazon. She basically, the Amazonians in this story, it's just happening in the city. It's like, it's not even Metropolis or Gotham. I think it's like DC or New York. But the Amazonians are living in the sewers.
It looked like she was in Brooklyn or something.
Yeah, it was like she was in Brooklyn, but she's basically, they're in the sewers of New York. And the Amazonians are in hiding, and she discovers that she has powers above and beyond other Amazonians, and she doesn't understand why. So they send her on a mission to go and find the Fates, and the Fates are basically homeless people that live under a bridge. And it starts to basically be revealed that their entire culture was usurped by something, and the thread of her own life has been taken out of the DC universe. And as a result, she was not there for major moments. And while she still exists, the thread of her life has been taken out of the loom of fate, for using old Grecian metaphors. Yeah. And so she has to rebuild her identity. So she has to become Wonder Woman again through all this tragedy that's happening around her. And it ultimately builds up to this huge showdown with the goddess.
You know what? That story was 50-50. Either you loved it or you hated it.
I love that story.
You know what? You know why I would be kind of like against Gadot revisiting that role as a series for Odyssey, if they decide to do it, which I don't think they will. It would.
Yeah, they would.
Like, it would work a lot better if they just got someone different, who, like someone else who was under the Wonder Woman mantle. Like you can get Nubia, but maybe change her name. But you can get Nubia to be the new Wonder Woman in this series.
Yeah, Nubia was very. I'm still amazed that they called her that. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
really?
Like change the name, but keep the fact that she was Wonder Woman at some point, and make her Wonder Woman in that universe.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things they could do with it. There's a lot of great Wonder Woman stories out there that happen on Themyscira that are atypical Wonder Woman stories. Hell, I'll even give them credit for the New 52 Wonder Woman. That was a really fun story, which they've already taken a lot of aspects from. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and Wonder Woman 84 does have the sophomore slump, but I think that there's still a lot there to love. And for those who are just like hating on it, just take a step back. Do you really need to put that much energy into this flick? Like go focus on other movies then. But with that, I think it's time to get out of here. So let's just kind of do a quick run through where people can find you if they're not watching us on here. Laura, where can people find you where they want to see you elsewhere from our broadcast?
I'm all over the interwebs. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram, and it's all right there. That's my username across the entire world. Dr. Mrs. The Awesome.
There you go. which is a greate joke. It's a Venture Brothers joke, and that we've been doing for years. And I don't think
I had a
anybody.
guy come up to me at a con once and go, "What's your doctorate in?" And I was like, "Awesome."
Like, literally, try to explain that. The Venture Brothers had a character called Dr. Girlfriend. And so eventually they married, the two characters got married. And so she became Dr. Mrs. the Monarch. And at that point, we had been dubbed the Awesomes by a friend of ours. And so we just started calling ourselves the Awesomes. And so then Laura said, I'm Dr. Mrs. the Awesome. And I was like, yeah, that works. But Christina, let me know where, or let me know. I know where you are, but let other people know where they can find you online.
Well, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram under this name.
There you go. It's like, wait, which? There we go.
I did this.
Right.
But yeah, you can find me there under this name on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram.
There you go. Xtina is Ninja. And finally, Miss Anastasia, of course, thanks for being here, and let them know where they can find you.
Me. You can find me at Anastasia W on Twitter, at Anastasia Wash on Instagram, and Anastasia TV on YouTube.
Beauty. So, folks, we're going to get out of here. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and we'll be back. I'm going to be doing some Perler building probably this weekend, so I'll probably set up downstairs and do actually just an old school Perler broadcast. So if somebody wants to hang out on Saturday, provided that I've gotten done with my Legos. Oh, I got to tell you about Legos later, folks. That'll be a different broadcast.
Do a Lego broadcast.
I might do a Lego broadcast, but we'll talk about that this weekend. We're going to be building something. It might be Legos, it might be Perlers. We'll find out about that.
That new translation of the Odyssey.
Oh yeah, hold on, I'll pull that up. Christina, tell them what this is.
So this is a new translation of the Odyssey that we have all read in high school. The major difference of this compared to all the other translations that we've read or may have read is that Emily Watson, who wrote this book, is the first female translator of the Odyssey, the first published female of the Odyssey, and she takes out a lot of she makes an effort to take out a lot of the what we conceive as like maybe a wholly misogynistic translation of the story, and so she tries to
water down.
Yeah, it watered down. She goes into more detail of stuff that translators even skipped or just kind of glossed over.
Iliad, or is she only doing the Odyssey?
Right now, it's just the Odyssey. I don't know if she's working on the Iliad as a whole, but right now it's just the Odyssey because that's the one that everyone has read. That's like the more important part of the series because the Iliad is just so much bigger, I think. But yeah, so she tries to put in more context of what is because she's a classicist and she also translates, and she tries to put in more context for the modern reader.
There you go.
And like tries to make it as close to accurate as possible without making it, I don't know. She says a lot of people have described it as like taking out the misogyny and chauvinism that previous translators have put in, like through no fault of their own, maybe. But that was always just in their mindset. And when they see a word that they associate slut, whore, or
just really meant female.
Every other word that could have been slave but was watered down to worker.
It's like the word female suddenly becomes whore. What the fuck is wrong with these people? But I'd also really, 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 really like someone like her to do like the Bible.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
But yeah, like
get
the original
text and like try to convert them. I mean, of course, when and this is a totally different topic, but when you get into
we were saying goodbye, by the way. So
we were saying goodbye. Then I had the audacity to bring in a book.
But I'm just gonna say this. But when you're translating dead languages, it's like someone It's like an 80-year-old trying to understand what we're saying sometimes right now. You know, like the tone of our speech, how we've modified words to mean other things. Language is always evolving and growing. And when no one is alive that speaks it, it's really, really hard sometimes to define those words as they meant it in the context that they probably meant it. It takes a lot of interpretation and skill and thought and of course knowledge of the language and their culture. So there's so much time and effort and knowledge that goes into doing these things. And I would definitely like to see more women doing it, because these things have been interpreted so many times by so many people for intent. They were intent on their purposes in their translations. And if their idea was to subjugate women, they're obviously going to look for translations.
Or if their worldview had something to do with subjugating women.
Yeah, I mean, the Old Testament and the New Testament, none of those are very female friendly, you know. So, but I probably would believe that those stories really aren't that necessarily in that tone. If someone got in there with the purpose not of showing misogynistic viewpoint just to belittle women to keep them lower in the rungs of society. But that's another topic for another day.
Right. Hey, you know, we can come back and talk about that. You know, we'll make a plan and we'll announce it and we'll come back.
That's a whole lot of studying I have to do, Shaun, and I don't want to do it. That's why I'm not in school anymore.
Well, you're the one who held up the book, okay? You held up the book.
I know.
You did this. We were saying goodbye. And you're like, hey, does anybody want to get into a deep philosophical conversation about why people mistranslated the Odyssey
it's like, hey,
for the last 2,000 years?
Hey,
because men are dicks. That's why.
I'm always going to throw it in there.
Yeah. but if we want to just boil down to it, men are dicks. They're very, very, very insecure sometimes, and those men way back in the day, way more insecure. So.
Oh man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I not supposed to say that out loud?
No. I'm just like, I'm agreeing with you.
Did I say the quiet part? Did I say the quiet part out loud?
I mean, it's also really important to remember that the Greeks in the upper part of Greece, their women were of no purpose. They didn't even feed them meat. They just ate gruel, and the only meat was reserved for men. That's disgusting. So of course their writings were probably misogynistic anyway, but like I said, that's for another day.
Right, we're gonna go. Bye. We'll see you later. Bye, everybody. Men suck. Oh god. Okay, so Christina can't hold up books at the end of broadcast anymore.
Rabble.
We'll see you later, guys. Bye. We'll talk to you later.